I just had a big glitch there. Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm probably going to have to exit the studio here in a second. I don't know what the heck's going on, but welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel, where this is we're covering the last episode of Convicting a Murderer, episode 6 that we haven't got to yet, but that's what we're going to be doing. So welcome, everyone. Doc?
Thank you so much there, Jack61, and welcome, everyone. It's great to be here this morning here in Adelaide, South Australia, and welcome from wherever you're listening to in the world. Again, guys, we want to say a big thank you to all of our supporters. Thank you so much for sticking by us. As you know, we're going to be continuing our rebuttal series to Convicting a Murderer, and today, hopefully, will be the last one. It's been a very interesting exercise. It's been a lot of passion, a lot of aggression sometimes shown by a lot of people, but we need to cover it. And so before we start this particular rebuttal, again, guys, I'd like to welcome everyone for joining us. Thank you so much. Your support means a lot to us. And we're here for you guys as well, okay? And we must never forget why we're all doing this. It's to seek justice for both Brendan, for Stephen, and of course, Teresa Horbach. We are here as a team, the Foul Play team, to find out the truth of what happened that awful day, good, bad, or otherwise. So here, guys, we're going to be doing our very final, hopefully, episode in our rebuttal series. But before we do, guys, I'd like to welcome everyone on the panel. So Jack61, if I can get back to the main page, I'll introduce everyone before we start our podcast. Jack61, how are you, good sir? Good to see you here.
Well, battling a pretty good cold. The sore throat turned into a nose that's just running like a faucet. But other than that, I don't really feel bad. It's just really irritating. And I've sneezed a lot too, so I don't know what the hell's going on there. But anyway, doing pretty well. Been really busy, of course, with the Jody calls that have been, they've been very interesting again, going down that path.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can, continue on and get those finished up here for long. So just been busy, Doc. Just been busy.
Yes, you certainly have, Jack61. And all of us here, thank you so much for your hard work, getting all those calls and doing a lot of open mics this week. And we continue with our rebuttal. Again, thank you so much. We're certainly learning a lot, Jack61, from those calls. Next, we have Just Rhonda. Just Rhonda, welcome. Good to see you here.
Thank you, Dr. Silkman. It's good to see you, and it's good to be here, and just ready to rock and roll and get this done.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Just Rhonda. Next, we have Katie. Katie, welcome. Good to see you here.
Hey, all right. Glad to be here and participate, and looking forward to ending this Convicting a Murder rebuttal. So let's get on with it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie. And next we have, I don't recall. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Rebutting Convicting a Murderer. Hopefully the last or nearly the last one.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next we have Alice. Alice, good to see you here. How are you today?
Yeah, doing okay, Doc. Once again, it's bloody freezing here. As usual, so not much has changed. Glad that this is hopefully going to be the last one, and then we can get on to other things. So looking forward to it, Doc. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alice.
And hi to everyone in chat, and hi on panel.
Awesome. And next we have Susan. Susan, good to see you here.
Hey, Doc. Nice to be here. I've only got about 45 minutes or so, but I'm happy to be here.
We might get our first slide. No, I'm only kidding. All right. Well, look, guys, thank you so much and a warm welcome. Thank you for everyone on the panel. I believe that Neverly will be joining us shortly. But again, guys, thank you so much. It's great to be here. And Susan, do you see everyone in chat? Do you see the people in chat?
I do, Doc.
Would you like to call people out? And Jack 61, if you could put the first slide up, that'd be awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll say hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. I see Allie Apperson is with us, Sheila Hawkins, Just Rhonda in chat and on the panel. Lord Bucco is with us, Double D, Trav, Dr. Silkman, of course, our host. J-Jax is on chat as well. Clive Coolidge, Gloria's here. Passive Bear is with us. Kay is on
Welcome.
panel and in chat. Pete Moss, Wooden Palette, as I like to say. Emily says, Ronald Lee Cass from the Missouri Ozarks. Anthony Hills, Random Pieces. Robbie, Kelly McAlien, Nan's Live 7 has joined us again. Nanny Angie Dickinson is with us. Sela 442, Graham Moss, hello Graham. True Crime Fangirl. Did I say Anthony Hills? Lil Barb has snuck in there. Under Your Scars is with us. And I think that's it so far.
Awesome.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, look, guys, today's episode, like I said, we'll be doing a rebuttal to episode 6. And if you've been watching the series, because I've already seen a couple of questions come up, and don't worry, we'll answer them. Today's episode is entitled The Key and the License Plate Call. There's actually quite a bit more to this episode apart from just the key and the license plate call. But before we start the rebuttal, guys, if you like what we do, please subscribe to our channel. Place your DNA on the thumbs up button if you enjoy the podcast. And please share our podcasts. The more people that get to hear our podcasts and discuss it, ask questions, that'll be awesome. And it's very, very welcome. Again, guys, all of us here on the panel and on the Foul Play team, we value your support. Thank you so much, guys. So just the normal disclaimer, what we discuss on the panel today as a part of our rebuttal are our own personal opinions. We're not going to be playing any clips, but what I've done is I've placed together some screenshots, and I've asked a question for the panel and for members in chat, for people in chat, and you're quite welcome to answer them along with us. So again, guys, the important thing is please be civil, please be respectful. All right, but before we start our rebuttal, I just want to talk about 2 slides, present 2 slides. And this is important because it really gives you an idea of what Convicting a Murderer was all about. Now, as you know, Candace Owens, she was the hostess for this particular docuseries. And as you know, she was extremely, extremely critical of many aspects of making a murderer. I just want to read out a quote here, what Candace Owens said. Alice, do you see the slide?
Do you see the slide, yes, Doc.
Yep. Are you able to read what's underneath the slide?
Okay. Candace Owens, host of new docuseries, said Netflix original production made it seem as if it was plausible that Avery had been framed by investigators, creating virulent tribes of supporters for Avery and Dassey.
Interesting.
We have a new name for a cult, a virulent tribe.
Correct. We do
our
have
amygdalas have been hijacked.
Oh, correct. Please take that picture down. as soon as possible. Yeah. So the important point for putting that up is it really gives you a basis of what Candace Owens and also others that were on Convicting a Murderer thought about the Netflix series, the producers of the Netflix docuseries Making a Murderer, but also it gave strong impressions about people like us and a lot of people in chat that were now known as virulent tribes, which is rather remarkable accusation to make. And in my opinion, very, very disrespectful. But what is very interesting is that Candace said, and I quote, made it seem as if it was plausible. And I have to remind Candace, and I'm sure everyone here on the panel and in chat will repeat the same words and echo the same sentiments, is that guess what happened to Stephen in 1985, right? He was
Exactly.
exactly, Susan. He was accused of a vicious attack on Penny Bernstein, right? And the sheriff, the district attorney, and others in the community believed that Stephen Avery was guilty. So it's rather remarkable that Candace would make a swipe by making a remark, quote, made it seem as if it was plausible. Now, when Stephen was arrested for that particular crime that he didn't commit, hey, it was indeed plausible, as we found out, or as Stephen found out 18 years later, that he didn't commit this horrible crime. Now, for many, many years, remember, the sheriff, the district attorney, and others said, no, we've got the right man, right? As if to imply, don't bother asking questions, don't bother doing any further testing. We have the right person in custody for the attack on Penny Bernstein. Lo and behold, it must have been very embarrassing for everyone involved that Stephen was indeed innocent and that a violent sexual predator, Gregory Allen, was free on the streets for many, many years to continue his disgusting craft, right? So I really do take offense that Candace would say a comment like that. But further, to label us and label people in chat as virulent tribes, guys, that's just not on. I'm sorry. What does the panel think, and what do people in chat think? Speak up, guys.
Well, personally, Doc, if you want to talk about virulent and I won't say violent, but certainly very aggressive type of mentality in talking with guilters the other side of this case. Man, I know that there's truthers out there that are aggressive as well, but if you want to talk about aggressive, just go talk to a bunch of guilters that have been around for 7-8 years, like I have, like many of us have, and yeah, it's crazy the aggressive nature, and it's been that way for forever. You can't get away from it. So if there's any virulent group, it's them, in my opinion.
Correct.
I agree, Jack. 100%. I've seen a lot of almost hateful responses from the guilters side, and I can't deal with them. I can't go into a discussion. To just have a debate, you just can't do it because they're just so mean and nasty, and they don't debate.
It's actually very, very personal attacks, ad hominem attacks that I've noticed a lot, especially on
they
X.
Go there as well.
Yep, yeah. Correct.
And this film, Cam, I feel was just so unfair to the truthers, painting us as virulent tribes and just, you know, our amygdalas are hijacked. We're not critical thinkers. We're just, you know, we're just caught up in this story that man put out, that has no truth to it whatsoever. It's
Yeah,
really,
we've all been painted with the crazy brush.
we have. And that, you know, we're just people. We're passionate people that care about justice, period. We don't all bend to one leader. You know, we don't all believe the same thing. We all are critical thinkers and look at the evidence and rely on that for our opinions. Not a movie.
Correct. Yeah, very good point, Susan. Katie, do you have a comment?
The effect of our group is harmful. You know, we're bitterly hostile. Are you serious? I mean, I don't get it. That's just nasty things to say about people. Yeah.
Yep.
Whatever.
Yep, I agree. Thank you so much, Katie. Alice, do you have a comment?
Just that, yeah, I mean, like everybody else has said, the nastiness that I've seen, it comes from the other side. And maybe it's just because I'm not looking in the right places or anything like that. But everything that I've seen, the ones that make the nasty comments is the guilter, and I think Reddit is one of the worst for that sort of thing. You know, if you come in
spot on, Alice, and a certain Facebook group on on Facebook, it's really bad. Like really, it's actually probably worse than Reddit.
Yeah, you could go in and you could hit with facts, you know, and then because they're not getting anywhere because you're putting out facts, they start calling names and being personal and calling you an idiot and you don't know what you're talking about and everything like that. You know, you're not qualified enough, and none of us say that we're qualified. You know what I mean? We say, I'm no a lawyer. I got my lawyer degree on Google, you know, and if nobody's picking up on that, then they are idiots. You know what I mean? But we do have ones that are on our panel and that come in and chat with us and everything like that. I mean, you, Doc, you've got your molecular biology and stuff like that, degrees and honors and things like that.
I've had all my professional qualifications challenged.
Yeah, exactly. But then you've got Sapper Cop, who's an ex-cop, you know what I mean, who brings his insight into it. And a lot of people know that he's an ex-police officer, but when he puts out a decent statement or anything like that, you know, it's like, no, who do you think you are? You don't know what you're talking about. Well, he's an ex-police officer. He's done investigations and everything like that, you know. And it's just silly sometimes. But yeah, I mean, most of the aggression of things that I've seen has came from the guilter side. And I'm not meaning any specific guilter. I'm meaning all of them, you know, like Jack said. I mean, I'm never on the Facebook group, so I don't know what happens in the Facebook group and how aggressive it is and everything like that. But now and again, I've been on Reddit and stuff, and some of the stuff that I've seen on there is like, holy moly, you know, I'm just not getting involved in it, you know. So yeah, so to be calling us what was it, a virulent tribe, I think they need to look in the mirror, you know, especially Candace Owens, because she's no angel either, you know. I mean, her thing is controversy, you know, and the more outrageous she is, the more she gets her clicks, the more she gets people going, oh, you're great, you know. But then you've also got the other side that are saying, you're an idiot, You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you can't win either way, no matter who you are sometimes, you know?
Correct. Thank you so much, Alice. Just Rhonda, do you have a comment?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Doc. I don't engage with guilters anymore. It's just pointless, and it gets me upset and angry, and that's what they want. So I just choose not to engage with them. My comment is, if they believe that Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey are guilty, then why are they here? If they believe they are both guilty, then they've won. You've won. So be happy with that. Take the W and leave. Let those of us who are still trying to dig and get information and do research and find what might possibly be a different truth, let us do that, and don't care about it. Don't give a fuck about what we're doing. Move on, because you've got the win, and leave us alone.
Yeah, it's that's an excellent point, just Rhonda. But at the end of the day, I think it's pretty obvious what is occurring in the community, especially since Convicting a Murderer came out, and that is basically to try and shut us all down. Groups like us, researchers like us, people in chat, they want everyone to go away. And you can see and read the sentiments. I've been spending a little bit of time on X or Twitter. Some of the vitriolic attack that I've been a target of, and other members here have been targets of, is just reprehensible. And also guilters, they get targeted too, which is unbelievably bad all round. The important thing is to be open, honest, and fair. And play the ball, not the man. And that expression means that, hey, discuss the evidence. Don't basically attack other people. And it's very dangerous. And my point is this, and then we'll continue. My point is this. Candace has millions of followers, right? Millions of followers, and has a very high social media profile. Foul Play is only a small group, right? You have 2,500 passionate supporters, which is awesome. But when you've got millions and millions of supporters and you make comments, people listen, right? People listen. And when you get called a vitriolic group and a virulent group and things like that, and some of her other comments that she's said on podcasts, shows, and written down is actually quite shocking. And that really is the fundamental basis of convicting a murderer, right? Now, the Foul Play team was interviewed by Brenda Schuller over 3 years ago, where none of this, we had no idea how it was going to come out many, many years later, but we've seen Convicting a Murderer and how that transpired. So we've got one more slide before we start the podcast. Jack 61, can we have a look at slide B, please? Again, this is Candace. And I'll just wait for that to come up. Slide B, we can have that one. So
That
if
one
you,
there?
yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Katie, do you actually see the slide?
Yes.
Are you able to read what's on the bottom? So this is Candace, the hostess of Convicting a Murderer.
Owens accused Riccardi and Demos of being dishonest to viewers in their award-winning, in their award-winning portrayal of Avery, who was sentenced to life with parole.
Which is not true. You got it? For the Hallbox murder. You got it? Yep. Honest. So thank you so much, Katie. So here's the fundamental issue, and this is what underpins Convicting a Murderer, in that the filmmakers, Riccardi and Demos, they were being dishonest. And all of us here on the panel and everyone in chat, you've had your amygdalas hijacked and you've been fooled. right? So there is a systematic attack from the producers of Convicting a Murderer on the producers and the filmmakers of Making a Murderer. And guys, teams like us, supporters like you guys in chat, we've been the brunt of being targeted, right? There's no question about it. When someone makes a strong statement like being dishonest, that's a very, very strong statement. And furthermore, in this article, which I read just yesterday, she even said that every award that the filmmakers got should be given back.
Yep.
All their awards that they won should be given back because they were so dishonest, right?
Yep.
Which is Jack 61. Do you have any comments?
Oh, I was just agreeing with you, Doc. She absolutely did do that. But this whole thing, another thing, and maybe not so much from her, she's just being told what to say, but this jealousy over the success of Laura and Maura, despite whatever got put into the documentary, that's aside. They're saying that they were dishonest. Well, they were making a documentary for profit, just like Cam. No different. So are there elements in Convicting a Murder that are dishonest? Well, let's just look at it just from one perspective that we've been talking about. I don't think there's anywhere in MAM 1 that has anything about truthers or guilters. But look at how much the seeds are sown throughout Convicting a Murderer. That has nothing to do with Making a Murderer, because there was really nothing, no kind of groups or anything like that going on in MAM 1, right? So what is this? What are they trying to do psychologically? What are they trying to manipulate throughout? It starts in episode 1, and it's strung out all the way through every episode, one way or another.
Correct.
We're included. And these labels they put on, state or Avery supporter or what do they call the state supporters? Justice.
Oh yeah, justice advocates. Justice
advocate. Yeah, but everybody else except for Rookie is an Avery supporter.
Yep.
So
correct.
even that is a manipulation. So who's being honest here? There you go.
Correct. All right, guys. Well, look, what we'll do, we'll make a start of the podcast. Jack 61, can we have a look at the very first slide? And I promise our aim is to try and finish this. So again, guys, so what I've done is I've collated a few important slides. We're not playing clips, and I'm going to ask a question to our panel members and people in chat. So a lot of the things that we'll see today, we've actually covered previously. What Convicting a Murderer likes to do is to have recurrent themes, as Jack 61 pointed out, right throughout the program. So you'll see a lot of the main points being spoken about many times. So if we have a look over here, now Making a Murderer was actually released on the 18th of December 2015 on Netflix. And I believe that there were 10 episodes, and most people watched it. They batch watched it. They binge watched it. Now, if you notice in the opening sequence of episode 6, we've got Andrew Colborn appearing on camera, and he talks about the fact that a lot of people phoned him up from all over the world, basically giving a lot of hate calls, death threats to his family, horrible stuff. They even phoned Andy at home and also at work. And a lot of them were very angry and left some very nasty comments. Now, if you have a look, what Andrew stated was that a lot of the calls were recorded because they phoned him up at work. But if you notice the date on the left-hand side, it's the 24th, right? It's the 24th of December, which means that just 6 days after Making a Murderer aired, he was already getting harassment calls and death threats to him and his family just 6 days after. Now, I want to categorically say, none of us on the panel, no one from the foul play team, and I'm sure no one in chat condones that type of behavior, right? No matter whether you dislike an individual or not, you do not ring them up. You do not use social media in order to send death threats to that person and to their family. That is not on, right? No matter whether you dislike an individual or not. So this is incredible because just 6 days after Making a Murderer aired, already these calls were started. So here's my question. Someone's got, Neville, you got YouTube on? You need to mute.
I muted her.
Okay.
Should be good.
Okay. Yep, no worries. So here's my question to the panel. And Convicting a Murderer made this point all the time. So this is an important question, guys. I want to ask the panel. Whose fault was it for Andy receiving all these hate calls and death threats? Who would like to answer? So it's quite clear that Convicting a Murderer highlighted this. So whose fault was it? Jack 61. Do you have any comments?
I do. And again, I agree with you 100%. None of us would approve of anyone taking action after watching, I don't give a damn what they watch, calling out someone and making threats, especially a police officer. You just don't do it. So I personally feel like it's the individual's fault for doing that.
I agree.
I
agree, Jeff.
Right. No matter what they see on the TV or in a movie, a documentary, I don't give a damn what it is. If you have a problem with what you watch, there are other ways to express yourself other than threatening someone. So these people, I get it, they're upset, but you don't call them bomb threats and threats against a cop or a series of cops, whatever. That's their fault. Sorry, it just is. That's the way I see it. That's a personal thing that they took action on. Making a Murderer didn't make them do that. I watched it too. I was upset, but I wasn't upset to the point I'm going to call up anybody in that series and make threats. That's crazy. Thank you.
Good point. Good point. Thank you so much, Jack 61. Susan, do you have a comment?
Yeah, same here. It is the individuals that made those calls. It's on them completely. That's something I would never even think of doing. And I think it's despicable that people would do that. But yeah, that's on them. They're responsible for their own actions. So, I mean, I do not in any way blame it on Laura and Moira, which I think Cam would like to do. But yeah.
Well, it's like saying I got a bill in the mail that I can't pay, so I'm going to go rob a bank to do it so I can get the money. They've taken action because they need money to pay it. It's an individual act, to me, in the story.
Correct. I mean, the reality is, and someone made the comment, you can't control the audience that's watching a documentary or watching a film or a movie or even the news. You do not know how something is going to affect somebody. But it's very, very interesting that we all agree, we're all in agreement. You do not do that, right? You may dislike someone, but you don't give death threats to them and their family, especially to a law enforcement officer who puts their life on the line. And, you know, their interest is to protect and to serve, right? Doing something like that is simply not on. But what I do not like is the way Convicting a Murderer portrayed it as if to blame Making a Murderer for all that angst and aggression. So would you guys agree that it's really up to the individual themselves to show self-restraint, not the filmmakers that made the film? Guys, would you agree?
Absolutely. And you think about the dude that actually traveled from out of state and went to the Avery house, and then you had I don't know if it was the same dude or I can't even remember now, or another guy that went to Kratz's law office and basically ambushed him. That's on him. I mean, you can't. I mean, as much as we may dislike Ken Kratz personally, you don't go accost the guy. If you want to go ask him questions, make an appointment, say, look, I'd like to come and talk to you. Just one-on-one and have a conversation.
Yep.
So it's on each individual what they do. Making a murder is not responsible for that. I'm sorry, it's just not. My opinion, of course.
Right. Alice, what about yourself? Do you have a comment?
Yeah, I think it's down to the individual person, Doc. They chose to make their phone calls. They chose to track the people down. Like the rest of us on the panel, we were angry, we were annoyed. We seen the actions, or should I say the non-actions of the police, the investigation, everything like that. And that was all Moira and Laura were trying to do, was show you the other side of how Stephen ended up being wrongfully convicted in the first place. Was because the way the police handled it, and because they had a vendetta against Stephen, and that's my opinion. They had a vendetta against Stephen and they wanted him gone. And that applies to both cases.
Well, they had to end that. They had to end that lawsuit. That's my opinion. That lawsuit was going to be stopped one way or the other.
Yeah, exactly. So anybody who chooses to call up anyone and make threats like that, it's wrong. It is wrong. But then it's like the freedom of speech. I mean, people would say, "Oh, but that's them. They're just it's freedom of speech." They can say they think. No, when you're telling people that they're going to die and their kids are going to die, and there's going to be a bomb or something like that at the residence, or somebody turning up with a gun or anything like that, you do that and you get caught, then you face the consequences, whether that's a 6-month jail sentence or probation or community service or whatever. If you're going to be daft enough to make these moves, then you have to be prepared for the consequences that come after that.
I gotta add one thing to what Al's saying. We do have freedom of speech, and it is a cherished right. However, just ask Amber Heard what the consequences are when you fuck it up.
Well, yeah, exactly, Jack. But not only that, if somebody walked up to me and said something to me that I thought was bang out of order, you know what I mean? That Alice, she's a cow or something like that, and I didn't like it, and I punched him in the mouth, you know what I mean? That's the consequences of your actions. You know what I mean? You might have free speech, but there's always consequences that come with that free speech. You know what I mean? Right. So if you come up to me and you say something like that to me, and then I punch you in the mouth for it, you know what I mean? And be like, hey, you talking to you cheeky bastard. You know what I mean? So, and that's just how it goes. Yeah, there is free speech, but like I say, there's consequences to that free speech. And phoning somebody up and saying they're going to kill you, or they're going to do this, or, you know what I mean, you should be buried 6 feet under or whatever, that's wrong. It is wrong on all levels.
I agree. Thank you so much, Alice. And we welcome Neverly. Neverly, are you there?
Neverly.
She's muted. Are you there?
She is.
No, you're echoing. You must have mute on.
Yeah, unmute or mute YouTube.
Yep.
This is an echo chamber.
Yep, no, I think she's having struggles. 100%.
Truth, that was literally an echo chamber.
She's not very techno, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, no, she'll be back. She'll be back.
Yeah,
Yeah. Katie, do you have a comment?
You know, I think it's really just a character issue, like everyone else is saying. Some people are raised where, you know, they watch their parents or their family members be the, you know, I don't know, I'm going to kick your ass on a people. Oh my God.
No, we're still echoing.
Oh, Neverly,
I muted her.
Yep. Yep.
And some people aren't. I mean, some people are raised that you may simply disagree and, you know, that's it. It's like, I don't agree with that. There's no, you would never dream of calling and making a death threat or,
no.
I don't know. Some people think that's okay.
Correct.
A lot of bullies in the world.
Unfortunately, there are. 100% agree. Guys, shall we go on with slide 2?
Well, can we say hi to Neverly? I think she's got her stuff fixed now.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong over here in Southern California. 78 degrees. That's wrong, too, I got to tell you. Yeah, I know, but this is not natural for this time of year for us either. Anyways, hello. What I wanted to say about these threats and stuff, you know, of course, I disagree with it wholeheartedly. But did anybody else kind of get a hint that Cam was trying to cluster the truthers within these couple of or a few instances of people who were calling and making threats?
Yeah.
Because that's what I got out of it. And I think that also that is wrong. And on the Cam's part. So no, I do not condone that kind of behavior, but I also am not pleased that Cam is insinuating that all truthers are that passionate.
Oh, correct.
Yeah. Painted with the crazy brush. I agree.
Exactly.
Correct. Thank you so much, Neverly.
Sure.
That is the danger of placing everyone in a silo and in a bucket. I think, and that's the impression that I got that Convicting a Murderer was trying to do, rightfully or wrongfully, and that's simply not on. Again, guys, my final comment on slide 1 is that none of us here condone that type of behavior. And my final point is this. Also on Making a Murderer, they showed, I remember Mama Avery, Chuck, and Barb were sitting around their sofas, and Mama Avery was showing letters that people had sent to them, basically hurling a lot of abuse. You know, the fact that her son got arrested for the murder of Teresa Halbach, and the whole family received tons of hate mail as well. And I could only imagine the type of harassment that their family received when Stephen was arrested for the violent assault on Penny Bernstein. So that type of behavior, unfortunately, goes both ways. And of course, when Stephen Avery was exonerated for spending an additional 12 years in prison, I'm sure no one said sorry to him or the family for the hurt that transpired. So again, guys, we don't want to condone that type of behavior. But no, I think someone asked the question in chat. No, Convicting a Murderer did not look at the aspect of the Avery family, the Dassey family, and the effect that it had on them, right? So it goes both ways. The vitriol and the hatred goes both ways, unfortunately. All right, guys, are there any additional comments? We're all good? Okay, so Jack61 has got slide 2. Now, they continued this. Convicting a Murderer continued this. As you know, they showed snippets of Andrew Colborn in court, of course, and they talked about his a trial transcript, and we'll be discussing that. And again, it was Dean Strang that brought up the call. This is the infamous license plate call that Andrew Colborn made to a dispatcher. Don't worry, we'll be discussing that. But here's an important question that I want to ask the panel and also people in chat. Did Making a Murderer set out deliberately to make Andrew Colborn look bad? Did they do it deliberately? Who would like to answer that one? Jack 61, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I don't think originally that they did. I think that, we've read through the Colborn v. Netflix material, and knowing that, 2 episodes were done, and the third one was almost done when Netflix approached the filmmakers. And then, ideas started floating through. So, to become this protagonist, I guess you would call it, I guess that they kind of made Andrew out to be the kind of the protagonist because of, no matter how you slice it, I guess in my book, the phone call that he made on November 3rd about the license plate, I'm going to tell you, I mean, I can't truly explain it, and I've tried from both sides to understand what he was thinking. And then, you get into Convicting a Murderer, and he does this interview, and he says, well, I did it on my cell phone because I didn't want to put that over the scanner. Because
Which we'll be looking at that as well.
Right. So, you've got this you've got an evolving story here, again, beyond what we knew in trial, beyond what he said after man was released. Now it's evolved again. Also, and I'll let others comment, he also said, for some reason, and I don't really understand this either, I've brought it up a million times, it's never been explained to me. He says that, Uyghur, he got this license plate information from Uyghur. He had to, but he was driving and trying to jot it down on his knee or his leg on his notepad while he was driving.
Yep.
Well, okay. Well, what happened to the alert, the attempt to locate? Why didn't you hear that? What were you doing at 6:43 p.m. or whenever the hell it was? It was before 7 on the evening of the 3rd. Why didn't you hear that and get the information at that point in time? Also, there was a meeting with Lieutenant Link at 8 o'clock that you were involved in back at headquarters. I can't imagine if this information wasn't, I won't necessarily stuck in his face, but it had to be around about who they were looking for and what they were looking for. That's just trying to think reasonably about the situation and why he would make that call at 9:22. How did he not know her fucking license plate number? I'm sorry. I'll shut up now.
We'll be covering it, Jack 61. But before I get on to Neverly, but the important point is this: the implications that Convicting a Murderer were trying to make is that the filmmakers deliberately tried to make Andrew Colborn look bad. So,
well, a lot of people are thinking, well, he's somewhere pulled up behind that RAV. I don't know that. Or he found the license plate laying in that church parking lot across from Zipper's house. I don't know that either. I just know it's strange why he made that call. Based on what we know from previous information, he should already have the number and know who it belonged, the plate number and who it belonged to.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Jack 61. Neverly, do you have a comment? Did Making a Murderer deliberately make Andrew Colborn look bad?
I do not believe that. Personally, I don't. My impression of Colborn was always, has been, and will be until I find something different or different information, is that he's just not believable. No matter how he spins it, even in camp, when he was in his casual clothing, when he was joking around, smiling with big blue eyes and so forth, he just does not come across believable.
Okay.
Another thing is regarding his story, which is jotting down the phone number on his on the paper while driving, on his leg, whatever it was, which we've never heard before. It's not like he did that 3 months ago or 9 years ago, right? It was the same day. So didn't some information stay in his head? Number one. And then James Crane, as always, has these perfect one-liners. He said, why didn't he call Uyghur back?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's my take to his story is I would have one question. How long did it pass from receiving the information about the license plate and you jotting it down while driving and when you called Lynn?
Yep.
Because something must have, his amygdala must have retained some information.
Yeah, but thank you so much, Neverly. But this is very, very serious. The question that I'm asking here, because in convicting a murderer, they're basically implying, and we'll talk about it, that the filmmakers and the editing deliberately targeted Andrew Colborn, made him look bad, and as a consequence of making him look bad or guilty, people phoned him up and spewed their hatred and vitriol. Do you believe, and I'm going to go around the panel, do you believe that Making a Murderer deliberately made, and also people in chat, do you think Making a Murderer deliberately made Andrew Colborn look bad? Jack 61.
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
No.
Just Rhonda, your thoughts.
No, I don't think they did.
Okay. Katie.
Well, I don't know. It's a for-profit thing as well. And, you know, he comes off as a complete dumbass and uncredible. So it was entertaining watching him be that character. So in that sense, maybe so. You know, both of these documentaries are for profit. So I don't know.
Okay. Interesting point. Thank you so much there. I don't recall. What about yourself?
No, I don't believe they did.
Okay. Alice, what about yourself?
No, I don't think the filmmakers made him look bad. He made himself look bad.
Thank you, Alice. And Neverly, what about yourself?
I agree with Alice. I think that his demeanor and his storytelling, just as I mentioned earlier, just to me, he looked very unbelievable and untrustworthy. So I don't think that it was because there are other characters over there that I was like, oh yeah, remember guys, I'm the one who's sticking up for Remiker. I liked Remiker because I didn't find him shady. I didn't find him a liar. So it has nothing to do on which side you fall on. It's how you conduct yourself.
Correct. Look, I do agree. I remember watching Making a Murderer myself. I believe that his own character made him look suspicious. It's very, very interesting. And I'm going to ask this as a general question, and also people in chat. Are there individuals by their demeanor, by their character, that can make themselves look suspicious, right? Even though they've done nothing wrong, but just their actions can make themselves look suspicious. Then again, aren't there individuals who have committed crimes that appear to be very, very cool, calm, and collective, that you've got no idea? So the point I'm trying to drive at, it wasn't necessarily Making a Murderer that made Colborn look bad. It was himself, his own demeanor. Is that possible?
Yeah, it is. I mean, you know, I just simply look at it this way. And, you know, I can think of many characters and some of the flaws and so forth that we saw in Making a Murder. But then I look at a guy like Pevito. This son of a bitch he was all about the business, period. He didn't have any bias. He didn't have any bullshit. He was very straightforward. I mean, he seemed like he was completely honest and about everything. And I didn't detect one thing negative about him. He was all about doing his damn job, period. All this other stuff and add in nothing. He just reported everything as I mean, that's what it came out to me. And he's a DCI state agent, has been for years, and that's what I got from that guy. And then I look at some of the others and how they act, and it's like, holy shit, are you guys in the same? You guys are in the same agency? I look at a guy like Fassbender, and I'm like,
Correct.
how the hell did this training get so far off? So it goes beyond the training; it becomes about the character.
Correct. And Gloria just made a point, a very interesting point. I thought he looked worse in cam than ma'am. Excuses. Yes, I agree.
Absolutely.
Andrew Colborn did not look very, very good in Convicting a Murderer, and he probably regrets embellishing the stories and narratives that he did on Convicting a Murderer. I really, really do. But there's one. Sorry, Jack 61.
Just to add one more thing to this, we can't forget, because it's not really talked about much. It's kind of at the end, but we can't forget about this massive lawsuit that he's taken out against Netflix, the filmmakers, and Synthesis as well, in his civil lawsuit. So that was going on back then too, in 2018. It got filed in December, I think, of December 2018. So this was going on during filming too. So
interesting. But the other important point is this: we're all human beings. We all judge a person's character, right? Some of us are more perceptive than others, but normally you make a judgment. And people have made judgments on everyone that appeared in Making a Murderer, the good guys, the bad guys, right? And that occurred on both sides of the fence. There was almost an instant universal dislike of Ken Kratz. Why? Everyone's got their own reasons why. But in this particular case, when we're talking about Andrew Colborn, it's not just one element. This is the important thing. It's not just one element. And by that I mean, when you think about Andrew Colborn's association with Stephen Avery, it dated back to 95, 96 when you received the phone call. That's one. The other thing, of course, was the calling in of the license plate number. The other thing is Andrew Colborn's reluctance of writing reports. Sometimes he would write a report many, many years after the fact, or many months after the fact, right? And of course, I think the thing which really hurt him a lot and his credibility was the finding of the key, and which we'll be talking about, right? So it's not just one element. It's a whole conglomeration of elements where people make a judgment call on an individual and their credibility. And I think at the end, many people found Andrew Colborn untrustworthy. Guys, is that too severe, what I just said?
No.
Would you agree that it's an accumulation of many, many events over a long time period where people are scratching their heads going, there's something not right here, right?
Yeah.
So I don't believe that Making a Murderer deliberately target Andrew Colborn. I think Andrew Colborn himself made himself look suspicious over many, many, and someone said the word, collective actions over a long period of time. Yep. Guys, would you agree with that? Am I being too harsh here?
I don't think so.
Agree.
I mean, he writes a memo 8 years after the fact over a phone call that was allegedly unimportant. Well, why bother writing the memo?
Correct.
Yet,
yep.
He didn't have trouble with time passing when he wrote that email to his boss, creating alibis, covering his behind and so forth, changing facts. He didn't have a problem then. So, yeah.
He didn't have a problem looking for a lawyer, January 8th or 10th, whenever it was. He sent the first email. It was quite lengthy, and he sent several more too after that. He didn't have a problem writing those in a timely fashion. So
correct.
That creates another step of distrust. Well, I'm not going to say complete distrust, but it makes him look shady by not writing reports in a timely fashion if it's something that's reportable and should be reported.
Yeah, that's something that those two attorneys picked up that are doing the podcast series, right?
Defense diaries.
The defense diaries. That's something that they picked up. The fact that a lot of those reports were written well after the fact. So hence, there's always the possibility of collusion. Let's get our story straight, right? And they could tell because they could tell by the style of the writing of how the reports were written. And of course, the other thing that Andrew Colborn was involved in was basically saying in court that Stephen never talked to Teresa, right? Oh, no. He never talked to Teresa. He said he never talked to her. And as a consequence of that, that was a very, very important point that made Stephen himself look very, very suspicious, right? So as people pointed out in chat, it's an accumulation of many, many elements that I think counted against Andrew Colborn himself. So my conclusion is Making a Murderer didn't deliberately target Andrew Colborn and make him look bad. And in actual fact, Judge Ludwig agreed with that sentiment as well. Right, Jack 61? Right, guys? When he sued Netflix.
Absolutely. He was pretty scathing in his reasoning for, shutting down the lawsuit. In the summary judgment, he didn't pull any punches, in my opinion, basically to him, or his lawyers, I should say. It was a disaster. It was a complete and total disaster.
Interesting.
JD just brought up a really good point. He said, if you didn't have a problem with writing things down 8 years, what happened 8 years ago, he shouldn't have had a problem remembering in the registration plate, right? That's what I'm saying. How much time did it pass from receiving that information till he called Lynn?
That's right.
In actual fact, that's something we're going to cover as well. So, Jack 61, can we, unless there are any other comments, well, have a look at the next slide. Well, I tell you what, Ken Kratz, he was fired up. He really was fired up, as well as some of the state advocates here. Case enthusiasts. They were really fired up, and they really had a go at Dean Strang, because Ken Kratz basically was blaming Dean Strang for even bringing up the call, right? When Andrew Colborn put in the license plate call. And don't worry, we'll be talking more about this in a second. So my question to the panel is this. This is what Ken Kratz said during this particular episode. Was it in actual fact Dean Strang's fault for bringing up the license plate call in court? Because, of course, he played the call where Colborn phones up the dispatcher. In fact, he played it several times. And this actually hurt, I believe, the credibility of Andrew Colborn. The call itself. So my question to the panel and people in chat, hey, was it Dean Strang's fault for bringing up the license plate call?
No way. No way was it. Yeah, I mean, let's be fair here. Buting and Strang had requested all the dispatch calls and didn't get them. I know that I saw a fax. I think Buting wrote it. I think that was the last one dated in July of 2006, and they still didn't have anything. And then finally, when Remaker admitted in the hearing in August that he had listened to several dispatch calls and so forth, the night before, of course, Buting and Strang had a heart attack. Like, we've been requesting these things for months and haven't gotten anything from the prosecutor. They ran them off 30 copies, 30 calls out of thousands. And this just happened to be one of them, the license plate call. So I don't blame him at all. It wasn't his fault. He had to do it.
Correct. But remember when they played the call and he said 99 Toyota?
Yep.
Then he said, oh, no, I thought the dispatcher said that. And they replayed it again. right? They replayed it again. It was clearly Andrew Colborn, but it was remarkable that Dean Strang said, "Is that you who made the call?" And, you could tell that there was some hesitation with Colborn. "Oh, yeah, sounds like me. I guess it's me." And, if you're the jury and you're people in the trial listening to this, you're thinking, huh? Isn't this meant to be just a routine type of call?
Yep.
So I think it was the actions and behavior of Andrew Colbert. Now, we're all different. We don't know how we will react under pressure when you're in a courtroom. I've never been in a courtroom. I've never been questioned like that. So I don't know how I'm going to behave. But I would imagine that if you're a law enforcement officer, you would be used to that type of environment and being questioned like that, right? But the fact that he was hesitant, stumbling, made a mistake by saying, "Oh, 99 Toyota," and people must be thinking, well, this doesn't sound too good. Jack 61, your opinion, sir?
Yeah, I mean, it's trying to blame the dispatcher for something that he said, and it was clearly him that said it. That made him look untrustworthy. I'm not going to say necessarily corrupt, but he's the one that made the call, and he just absolutely just listened to it and then tried to blame the dispatcher. Not good.
Correct. But look, if you're listening to this, you're an impartial person, right? Here's the problem that I foresee. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, right? Andrew Colborn is the one that received the call in 95 and 96, right? Regarding about what had happened with the Gregory Allen. So people have got that in their mind. Lo and behold, Andrew Colborn is deposed in Stephen Avery's civil suit trial, like just weeks before Stephen Avery is charged with the murder of Teresa Halbach. Then you see Andrew Colborn do the call about the license plate number, and people are starting to put two and two together, rightly or wrongly. And then magically, he's part of the team, the search team, that finds the key forensic evidence against Stephen Avery.
On top of that, him and Link, I think it was him and Link, or no, it was just him that went out to Avery's on the 3rd and didn't write a report for 7-8 months.
Correct. So if you're listening to all of this, you're starting to accumulate a profile, rightly or wrongly, of Andrew Colborn, right? And so the incredible thing, of course, was Link was accused of planting the blood in the RAV4. And so to make matters worse, Link and Colborn were always together. Link and Colborn were deposed in Stephen Avery's trial. And it's remarkable. Remember what Ken Kratz said? Oh, so that's your only association with Stephen? The phone call. Remember what Kratz said in court? That's your only association with Stephen? So basically what Kratz was doing was trying to distance Andrew Colborn from Stephen Avery.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right. So let's answer the question, guys. Let's go around the panel. Was it in actual fact Dean Strang's fault for bringing up the phone call? Did Dean Strang had any right to play that phone call? Jack 61, let's go around the panel.
Absolutely. He had every right, and he should have played the call. Absolutely.
Okay. Just Rhonda, what about yourself? Do you think Dean Strang should have played that call?
Of course. His job is to defend his client. And whatever evidence there is that, is in any part questionable, he should use it.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you so much. Katie, what's your opinion?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like Rhonda said, it's his job. His job is to create reasonable doubt. And, that call was shady as fuck. So,
okay.
Of course.
Thank you, Katie. I don't recall. What about yourself?
I agree. He was definitely right to bring it up. He had to. It would be, I think, ineffective if he didn't, because it's telling.
Okay. Alice, what about yourself? Do you think Strang should have played that call, and is he at fault for playing that call?
No, he's not at fault. And yes, he should have played that call. Like the rest of the panel have says, it was his duty. His duty is to defend his client to the utmost of his ability. And if he didn't play that call when he found it, and it was then later found by KZ, you know, that's serious ineffective for counsel. I mean, even though Jerry and that have says, you know, done affidavits and things like that for selling that, he say, yeah, there was some ineffective counsel that happens because they didn't have the funds to, you know, call experts and things like that. So he did what he should have done to the best of his ability. And as he found that call, and he was like, wait a minute, that's one of the main people who are in this lawsuit or this case, you know what I mean? It should be used. Definitely. I do not blame Jerry and I do not blame Dean for anything that they done in that courtroom, apart from I think they should have had more experts, especially a blood spatter expert.
Yes. Yeah. Which we'll talk about as well. Yeah. All right. So you don't agree with King Kratz that
No.
Strang is at fault here? Okay.
No,
Interesting.
not at all.
Okay. Thank you, Alice. Neverly, what about yourself? Should Strang have played that call?
Yes. And Anthony Hills said he should have played it louder,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yep.
And somebody else said, let me just find it. Anthony Hills again, he says Strang's job was to create a reasonable doubt. Anthony Hill says Buting should have dropped the key also, which is true.
I agree.
And something to talk about said something very interesting. She says, to me, it's almost like the defense was scared of the prosecution. I think that there are like two super decent human beings. I'm talking about Gene and Jerry and Strang and Buting. They're super decent gentlemen dealing with three like dementors, serpents. You know what I mean? And I think that they also got stuck a little bit in this shock and awe and the bluntness, rudeness, also unethical behavior, you know, whatever the prosecution was trying to do. Look, both of the teams had a job to do. They were on a mission. Unfortunately for Steven, he only had so many dollars to his name to pay for his defense, where the prosecution had a blank check.
Yeah, correct.
So, but that's a topic for another day. Yeah.
Yep, correct. Yep, interesting. And I also believe that Strang had every right to play that call. That's his job. That's his job. In actual fact, I can't believe that they didn't play any more. The more calls, the better, you know. But it's very interesting. But that license plate call, let me tell you, was a huge topic of discussion for many, many years, and it still actually is. All right, guys, shall we move on to slide number 4? Let's do slide number 4. And so this is very, very, very interesting, right? Andrew Colborn was asked, you know, why did you make that license plate call in the first place, right? And it's very interesting that Colborn, and you can see the trial testimony on the upper left-hand corner, he basically said that, oh, you know, I got the information, the initial information after Wiegert had rung him up, right? Because he had to give a reason as to why on earth, after he should have had that information, why is he ringing up dispatch making that call? So my question to the panel, and I reckon Colborn got caught out in a lie, right? Did Colborn fabricate the narrative about the license plate call? So in other words, I don't think he even knew at that stage during the trial what the hell he called dispatch for if he had the information. Because look what he said in court. It was Wiegert allegedly they gave him the information about Teresa's license plate number. So the question to the panel is this: did Colborn actually fabricate the narrative in the trial about the license plate call? Let's go around the panel. Jack 61, what do you think?
You know, that's a question that I've asked myself for, well, since I found out about it, and I can't honestly answer it because I don't think that Wiegert was ever asked if he called Colborn.
I don't believe he did, but during the trial, the camera panned to him, you remember? And he looked he looked clueless.
Yeah.
He goes,
I
huh?
do.
Yeah,
Right.
that didn't look good.
No,
So-
it didn't. I don't know, Doc. I can't fully answer that question.
All right. But is your mind changed of what Colborn said in Convicting a Murderer?
Well,
That he wrote the number down on a notepad and hence had to ring the dispatcher to double check.
I'm sorry. I'm not buying that. I just don't, because you know, here we are. Let's just say that was shot in 2019. So here we are 14 years later after the fact, and he remembers that detail, and he never said it before, ever.
He never said it in court, did he?
No.
He never said
No.
about that. Okay.
No.
Interesting. Just Rhonda, what about yourself? Do you think he fabricated the details of what he said about the license plate call?
Oh, I do. And it wasn't just what he said in court necessarily, but it's what all the cleanup around what he said makes me even more suspicious. If he believes and sticks by and what he says is truth and under oath in the trial, then there's no need to try to clean it up then or at any other time in the future. It is what it is. The testimony stands. And if that's what you're saying, then don't try to clean it up, because by trying to clean it up or walk it back, it makes you look even more
Yes.
uncredible as far as I'm concerned. And that's
Yes.
the way I've seen it over the years.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Good point. You know, it's, and I have to ask this question: was it actually advisable for Andrew Colborn to be in Convicting a Murderer? I don't think it helped him at all. But that's a question for another segment. Katie, what about yourself? Do you think Andrew Colborn fabricated the narrative in court?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when you look at him as a whole, here he is changing his story all the time throughout this case. So, I mean, I absolutely think he fabricated the narrative. I mean, and then you've got him having a better memory
Many years
with
after the
certain
fact.
things when, during CAM, many years after the fact. That's not how memory works.
Yep. Very interesting point. Thank you so much, Katie. What about you? I don't recall. Which is a very interesting name. I don't recall.
Oh, I definitely think it was fabricated. I don't have any doubt.
Interesting. Alice, what about yourself? Do you think you fabricated the narrative?
Yeah, I do. Trying to cover his bases, trying not to get into trouble with Calumet, things like that. He had to try and watch what he says, which made him look even more guilty, in my opinion.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Alice. What about yourself, Neverly? Do you think you fabricated the narrative?
Yep, I do.
Interesting. Yes, I do as well. To me, what Andrew Colborn could not remember precisely what had transpired. Otherwise, he would have talked about the fact that he was using a cell phone, that he was making the call just to double check. He went essentially to the default position. In other words, he went to Wiegert. Oh, yeah. That's because Wiegert gave me the information and I had to double check it. etc., etc., which was very, very interesting because, correct me if I'm wrong, but Andrew Colborn was a patrol sergeant. So he would be used to calling in license plate numbers.
He was the he was the patrol sergeant, which again brings up the alert. How did the patrol sergeant not hear the alert or attempt to locate?
Correct. So I honestly do believe that he fabricated that narrative just to get out of a very delicate and difficult situation by going to a default position by saying, "Oh yeah, I had to have gotten that information from investigator Wiegert. Otherwise, how was I going to get the license plate number?" Right? And clearly, he knew. He recalled the license plate number to the dispatcher, and even said 99 Toyota, right? Which tends to indicate that Andrew Colborn had indeed all the information, right? So the controversy is, well, was he actually looking at Teresa Halbach's RAV4? Was he actually holding Teresa Halbach's license plate number? And I think it looked really, really bad for him. So in my opinion, I reckon he did fabricate the narrative because he couldn't think of an excuse of why he would ring up dispatch, which is very, very interesting. Right. Jack 61, unless there are any additional comments, can we have the next slide, please? All right. Well, things started to heat up on Convicting a Murderer big time. And again, this involves Andrew Colborn, right, with the license plate call that he made. And here are two questions for the panel and in chat. And that is, why did Andrew Colborn use his cell phone to call dispatch? And I still cannot believe the excuse that he gave in Convicting a Murderer. And the second part of the question is, now, this was very embarrassing for Andrew Colborn. And that is, here's the second part. Why didn't the MTSO provide the call timestamps during the trial? Correct me if I'm wrong, Jack 61, but didn't Rookie get them in 2019, the timestamps?
The time system, that came up in conversation that he and I and some others were having, and I actually found a document that was in one of KZ's motions, and it was about the time system, and this covered. It's an automated kind of thing that MTSO and Calumet has. So anything that gets called in and reported within the system gets automatically logged within that system. And it showed SWH 582 was looked up at 9:22 p.m. on the 3rd.
Yep.
That's correct.
Yep. Correct. But they didn't have that information during the trial. Is that correct?
No.
And this actually looked very, very bad for Andrew Colborn. The fact that he sort of had to guess what time he made that call. But here's my first question to the panel.
It also looks awful because I'm pretty sure it's in episode 6. What you're talking about here, Candace Owens blathers out, well, if the defense wanted a copy of the call and wanted to know when it was, they could have went to Manitowoc County and requested that. Really? Yep. Well, why didn't they just provide the call dated and time-stamped originally? Why remove the metadata? And it's complete bullshit and misleading. Sorry.
Correct. And you see, this ultimately leads to suspicion, correct?
Absolutely.
Is there an ulterior motive of why they would not provide that information, right? And so poor Andrew Colborn got left out in the cold. But here's my first question to you guys and people in chat. Why did he use his cell phone? Why didn't he use his radio? Let's go around the panel. Jack 61, do you agree with what Andrew Colborn said? Why he used his cell phone?
No, I do not.
Why not?
Because it's a pretty standard thing. If you're calling in about a license plate to do it over the radio, we've got numerous dispatch calls on both KMET and MTSO officers doing that. But this one, he didn't. I mean, there's the call. I mean, even as much as warrants, they talk. This is another big hula. Supposed to be a bombshell in Convicting about when Detective Jacobs, do we have a body yet? And this is all supposed to be connected with some part of a radio call that he heard. Well, he was either listening to the call or not. Is Stephen Avery in custody yet? Well, there's no way if he was listening to the radio, that he wouldn't have known that this was a body-only warrant and it was on somebody else. It wasn't Avery at all. They broadcast those names on air without a problem, and they did it in many other places too. So I'm sorry, I'm not believing his excuse on that, Doc. I don't.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Jack61. What about yourself, Just Rhonda? Why did he use his cell phone to call in? Why didn't he use his normal radio, shoulder radio?
You know what? Call me Negative Nancy or Negative Neverly or Negative whoever you want to call me. But
Hey,
Neverly's my homie. She knows I don't mean that she's negative. But I just, it's been so many years listening to this and reading about this and going over the transcripts and reading documents. I think it was absolutely intentional that he used his cell phone. He doesn't want, anybody else over the radio hearing what he's saying. And I just believe it was absolutely intentional that it be done that way. He just didn't expect it to be captured and played in court.
Yep.
Well, what I'm saying is I don't believe his excuse that he thought, oh, well, somebody out there with a scanner is going to hear this. It could be the person that left that has information, and they didn't want to alert them that we knew. The problem is they were going to put it on now. I don't know if he knew they were going to put this on air or not, but at the same time, we all know that it was broadcast on the 10 o'clock news about Teresa being missing. So,
yeah. No, I'm not. I don't mean it's excusable that he,
right,
or that that he's saying that is a plausible excuse. I think he's a liar, quite honestly. And
Thank you.
So so I'm not saying that his excuse is valid or even realistic, but he knew what he was doing. He just didn't expect to get caught.
Right. But when he made the call, had they provided any information that Teresa was missing in the news at that stage, or did that occur after this call? Does anyone remember?
I think it was after. I think it was the 10 o'clock news, which was 40 minutes later, basically.
Okay. So, in effect, no matter what, the information about Teresa being missing, the details of Teresa and her RAV4, including her license plate number, were going to be transmitted on the media because Pagel went to see the media personnel himself.
That's right.
Correct?
That's
so
right.
no matter what, here's the question. Did Colborn disclose any sensitive information that the person who had either killed or kidnapped Teresa Halbach could use in that call?
No, not at all.
Colborn just gave the license plate number. Now think about it. If 40 minutes later, all that information was going to be on the news, if you're the killer or person who had hijacked Teresa Halbach, wouldn't you then be watching, hearing, and be notified, oh my God, the police are looking for Teresa Halbach? Would that surprise you at all?
No, none whatsoever.
So do you believe the excuse that Colborn said on convicting a murderer, I used my cell phone just in case the killer had a scanner and knew that we were looking for Teresa Halbach?
I don't, because even to this day, I mean, they do it here. I imagine they do it in other locales across probably the world. If you got a missing person,
Mhm.
it gets broadcast on the news. It's not unusual to see stories like that, and as much information as they can provide for an identifier.
Okay, so using a mobile phone means that your fellow officers can't hear what you've just phoned into dispatch, correct?
That's right.
It's a secure line. If he had used his handheld radio, could another officer have rung in and said, Andrew, I just gave you that information 10 minutes ago. What the hell are you doing, mate?
That's
Is that
right.
possible?
Absolutely.
Interesting. All right. Katie, just wonder, have you finished your comment? Sorry, I was being rude.
I had, and then Jack, I did. I'm so sorry, Jack, but you guys started talking about another part of it. But I just wanted to say right back to what I said initially, that the more he tried to clean it up in Cam, the worse he made himself look. I mean, if he, you know, that's just my opinion. And yeah, saying that that's why he used his cell phone. We've seen and read about and learned about and investigated and researched lots of cases. That's not an excuse I've ever heard. That doesn't mean it's not possible, just not one I've ever heard.
Interesting. Thank you, Jasronta. What about yourself, Katie? Why did he use his cell phone?
Well, because exactly what you said. He didn't want that traffic being broadcast, and you know, it's nefarious.
Interesting. Thank you, Katie. Thank you. I don't recall. What about yourself? Why did he use his cell phone to make the call?
I think he was trying to be sneaky. That's what I think.
Interesting.
Or he was being sneaky. He didn't try.
Yep. Interesting. Alice, why did he use his cell phone?
Because he was being a dodgy mofo. That's why.
Thank you for being correct, Alice.
He's being a dodgy mofo, plain, straight, and simple. All the other calls, I mean, if anything out of the calls that shouldn't have been plastered on air was is Stephen Avery in custody yet? You know, she was only a missing person. So why say that over the airwaves where everybody can see it and hear it, or hear it, I should say, you know, for the dispatch to any other officers that are out there. So obviously, if that got picked up with the dispatch calls and everything, if he'd have used his radio to call it in, it would have been all over the waves, everything like that, and then they couldn't have covered their own asses if anything fucked up. So he never used he used his mobile phone because he was being a dodgy mofo.
We need to get that on. We need to get that on a t-shirt, right, guys? Okay. Thank you so much, Alice. Neverly, what about yourself? Why did Andrew Colborn use his mobile phone to call in the plates?
I think that he was channeling his inner James Bond, Dr. Silkman. I have no clue why he did that. I don't understand the calling protocol or standards or rules, whatever. So I can't answer that question, really.
Yeah,
I don't know, but nothing good. It does not seem good. But I don't know why. I can't explain. I can't defend my position. I don't know what he was trying to do.
Yeah, it's very interesting that Andrew would use his cell phone. I certainly do not see a reason for it. I mean, at the end of the day, all he was doing was, according to Andrew, just double checking a license plate. I see nothing nefarious in that at all. But what I do not understand is why he would use his cell phone to do it. He's a patrol sergeant. At that stage, Teresa Horbach was a missing person. For all you know, remember, they didn't find the RAV. They found no evidence of any foul play on November the 3rd. They had just spoken, or he had spoken to Stephen Avery. There was nothing nefarious in that exchange at all. So why being this sort of like a secretive manner? Because I'm sorry, guys, but I am not convinced that the reason why he did it is because he was scared or concerned that the person who had either kidnapped Teresa Halbach, murdered Teresa Halbach, had a scanner and was listening in. Because remember, we're going to see in the next slide, he was in the church car park, very, very close to the Zipporah's residence, right? So, guys, I've never used a scanner, but what distance are we talking about that you can pick up a call from a scanner? Does anyone know?
You got to have the right. If they were in the county, probably anywhere, and had a decent antenna, anyone could have picked it up. Now, when you start getting, I mean, you can do it out of another county. I mean, even back then, depending on your scanner and the strength of your you know, how good of an antenna you've got, you can pick up, you know, other counties. But typically, I think most of those radios are 5 watt. So, you know, Monadnock's a pretty decent sized county. As long as somebody had a decent antenna on their scanner at home, they could pick it up. My opinion.
Correct. So I don't think anyone's buying that story that Colborn used his cell phone in order because he was concerned that someone with a scanner
I agree.
ring in. I mean, think about it, right? If you had murdered Teresa Halbach, what do you expect is going to happen, right? Sooner or later, her parents or her roommate or someone's going to call in and say, hey, look, my daughter's missing. I don't know what's happened to her. You know, here's the information. Can you put it on the media? Which is exactly what Pagel did on the evening of November the 3rd. But if you had committed this murder, are you honestly expecting the police at some stage not to get involved? Can you believe that, guys?
Of course they are. Of course they're going to get involved.
Of course they will, right? And if you're Stephen Avery and you committed this murder and Andrew Colborn rolls up on your doorstep, or he was at Mama Avery's house on November the 3rd, what do you think's going through your mind? Why are the police looking at me? Wouldn't that be your very first thing that you think in your mind?
Yeah, what the hell's going on? Absolutely.
So if you committed this murder, are you in all honesty going to leave all potential forensic evidence out in the open, especially after Colborn saw you on November the 3rd? And remember what Stephen said, that he saw tail lights near his property. Aren't the wheels already turning in your head? If you committed this murder, aren't you saying, oh, shit, I better cover my tracks? Guys, is that reasonable or unreasonable?
Well, it's crazy because I don't think pretty much anyone's thoughts are going to be, hey, I need to hook a scanner up so I can listen to what the cops are talking about. They're going to be busy trying to cover their tracks and get rid of anything that can connect them to it. That's me.
You mean you wouldn't leave burnt electronics and bones and the keys
all over your yard? Hell no.
A RAV4 just lying around?
No, it'd have been 10 gallons of kerosene and a road flare and everything's gone.
Yeah, there's something, I'm sorry guys, but there's something not right here. All right. So I do not know why the MTSO didn't provide the timestamps. That would have definitely helped Andrew Colborn during the trial, because he could have been definitive. He could have said, look, I made this call. This is the time. This is the date. End the party. Right? All right. Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? We're doing well. All right. So convicting a murderer made a big, strong point, and that is AC Rookie, I believe it was Rookie, finally got the timestamps to the calls in 2019. And as you can see here, they did a really nice timeline, and they timed the call where Andrew Colborn rang up dispatch at 9:22 p.m. on November the 3rd. So that's a definitive timestamp from Andrew Colborn. So we can see that Andrew Colborn He was in the church parking lot. I believe that's very, very close to the Zipper's residence.
Across the
So
road.
yeah, across the road. So here's my question to the panel and everyone in chat. Knowing this information now, knowing the timestamp of this call, are you now convinced that Colborn was not looking at Teresa's RAV4 or the number plates? In other words, he had the number plates, he either spotted them or had them in his hands. Are you now convinced that Colborn was not looking at Teresa's RAV4? Jack 61.
I'm pretty well convinced that he wasn't. I'm not going to say 100%, but I'm high 90s that he was not. There was a conversation between Remaker and because Remaker and Dettering left in one car. Colborn had already left in his patrol car prior to them after the meeting, heading back to the Zipper's place. So he was ahead of them, and he pulled into the church parking lot. I personally, I don't believe that the RAV was sitting there. I just don't. I can't prove it. That's just an opinion. I don't have anything that I can definitively say the RAV was sitting there. If I had something, I could connect it. I don't.
Okay. Good point. Good point. Thank you, Jack 61. What about yourself, Just Rhonda?
Kind of like Jack, I don't really know. I don't have anything that I can say, yes, it was there and he was looking at it. But having said that, is it possible that he did have his hands on the plates and only the plates? I think that's possible. I think that's more possible than the RAV actually sitting there in front of him at that point. But you know, I don't know. Yeah. You know, I have feelings, I guess.
Okay, interesting. Katie, what about yourself?
I don't know, guys. I don't know. I mean, I have a gut feeling, but that's, you know, I really don't feel like I'm up to speed on all the times and places, the timeline of where he was supposed to be and all that. So,
okay, but as somebody made a comment in chat, the RAV4 was spotted at the turnaround by several people, right? So I think even Robert Fabian saw the RAV4, what appeared to be Teresa's RAV4, off the Avery salvage yard. The question is, now that we know the timestamp, are you convinced that Colborn was not standing or next to Teresa's RAV4?
Are you asking? Okay.
He's supposed to be in the parking lot, right?
Yeah. He's in the parking lot.
Church. Yeah.
Correct.
Well, the RAV4 wasn't there.
No.
So he wasn't standing at the RAV4 then.
Okay.
If he was in the parking lot.
Okay. Yes, allegedly he was in the parking lot. Yep. And I have no reason to doubt him. Okay. Thank you, Katie. What about yourself? I don't recall. Are you convinced?
I always thought before that he was looking at the RAV, but at the time, but now it seems maybe more likely maybe that it was what Rhonda said, he had the plates.
Now, do you think all of this could have been cleared up had the MTSO provided the timestamps during the trial?
It would sure as hell helped him. I can tell you that right now. It would have helped him immensely.
Do you think Andrew Colborn has got some resentment and hatred that his fellow compatriots didn't provide the timestamp?
I would be pretty pissed. I can't imagine he'd be happy about it.
Okay, interesting. Alice, what about yourself? Are you now convinced that he wasn't standing in front of the RAV?
Nope.
You're
nope,
not
I'm
convinced?
Nope. I think he was standing in front of that RAV because the who was it that was it Ramlo that says that he's seen him at the Senex station and told him that he's seen the RAV just a bit further down the road, but it was in amongst the trees.
At
You
the
know, if
turnaround.
it's just a broken down motor, why is it being parked in between trees? To me, that means it's hidden. And if this guy drove past and he's seen it, and then tell a cop about it, because there was rumours that Andy was supposed to be off duty and that as well. If Ramelow knew that he was a cop and knew that this young lassie was missing in that, whether he was on duty or no, he knows he's a cop. So he's went, look, mate, I've seen that motor. It's just down there, down the road a bit. You know what I mean? So because Andy has been, air quotes, off duty, supposedly, I think he's went and he's checked where Ramelow has said that he's seen the RAV. And then he's used his mobile phone to call in that license plate because he's not on duty, so he's not got his radio.
Right, but it's actually a bit more interesting than that. The Ramelow was one day after. So Colborn wouldn't, if it was Colborn that Ramelow spoke with, it was one day after. The question is on November the 3rd, because now we've got the timestamp. This is before Ramelow, right? But the question is, did the MTSO or Calumet receive any tips of a RAV4 being seen off the property at the time that Colborn made that call? So was he aware that people had seen the RAV4 off the property? That's the interesting question.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So,
exactly.
So you're still not convinced that he didn't see the RAV?
No,
Colborn.
I'm still not convinced. I think he's seen it.
Okay, interesting. Neverly, what about yourself?
Well, you're not going to like my answer because it's going to be wishy-washy. I could be talked into thinking both ways because I just don't know. I cannot keep in my mind all the date stamps and time stamps. It's almost like too much jumbled in my amygdala. So I don't know. I really do not know. It's definitely fishy, but I do not know. How about yourself?
I'm convinced that he wasn't standing in front of the RAV. Had this information been brought up during the trial, the timestamp, exactly where he was, listening to all the other calls at around that time, I'm convinced that that RAV4 was not in the church parking lot. What I can't discount is that he had the plates in his hands.
That is a possibility. That is a possibility that we kind of have to consider because we just don't know for sure.
No.
That's where I am with it. I'm not convinced that he didn't have possession of just the plates.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, they could have been removed and just flung over there.
Correct. Or wherever he encountered them. Now, only speculation.
Of course,
So
of course.
Don't jump on my
We weren't there. We weren't there, so it's
exactly right. I'm not accusing Andrew Colborn, but I don't believe he was standing in front of the RAV. You're not going to be able to hide a vehicle like that because law enforcement and then other searchers were looking for it. You're not going to be able to hide it, right?
Well, I mean, this was at a church, so somebody would have spotted that RAV.
If
There's people there right. The people are in and out of a church every day.
Correct. But
well,
I know.
Sorry, go ahead, Doc.
No, just run that. Go.
Well, Cherie and I'm trying to see. Yeah, Cherie and I have been to that church parking lot.
Oh.
And it's we've sat across the street from Zipperers in the church driveway of the church. We don't know what it looked like then, of course, but it's very open. Like there's not trees that are covering or disguising or hiding the church parking lot or anything like that. However, that church parking lot the parking lot itself is set way back down that road, but not so far that you wouldn't be able to see a lone vehicle sitting there. I just don't believe it was there at the time. I don't know what Cherie's recollection is, but I think if it had been there, it would have been very noticeable.
Yeah.
For my recollection.
I agree. I don't think it would be a good place to hide something.
Yeah,
No.
and if I'm remembering, the Google Earth photos that we do have and other photos people have taken, the trees were really more isolated across the road where the houses were at. A lot of the houses had a lot of trees around them, like zippers and many others down that road. But on the right side or the other side of the road where the church was, it was more barren.
Yep. If you look at the foliage at the turnaround, yeah, you could definitely hide something there. From the people that have seen the vehicle, allegedly, Teresa Horbach's RAV4 at the turnaround, it was fairly deep in. So you could definitely hide it. And from above, it'll be very, very difficult to spot because of the foliage coverage. Personally, I don't believe Andrew Colborn saw the RAV4, was in front of the RAV4, but you can't discount, in my opinion, that he had the number plates with him. So it's very interesting that remember what the very first question that Mark Wiegert asked Pam of God? Does it have number plates on it? Remember?
Yep.
That's the first thing. He never said, did you see Teresa Horbach? Is she in the vehicle? Is there sign of violence? The first thing we get asked was, are there number plates on it? Interesting.
Yes.
Very
Which was
interesting.
very, very interesting and almost kind of telling. And to support your speculation, Dr. Silkman, if he was holding the license plate in his hands at the time of the call, I could see that because his tone of voice was very confident. You know what I mean? Strong. He wasn't like remembering or whatever. He was very like speaking with conviction. Blah, 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 number 99 Toyota, right?
In 99 Toyota, correct.
Okay, there's a question from Clive Coolidge.
Yes.
I think that he's going to go off, so I want to answer it. What was the date when Mr. Sievert saw the white Jeep and what appeared to be Teresa's car?
I think it was the 4th.
4th. That's what I think as well, but I cannot...
4th.
I wouldn't put money on that. Yeah.
Siebert saw two vehicles and a white Jeep and Teresa's RAV4 enter from behind through the quarry, and only the white Jeep left. So
the one with like paint peeling off the hood and stuff.
Of the hood, correct. I believe that was November the 4th. Correct. All right. Guys, do we have any additional comments? How we're doing in chat? We're going okay in chat?
Yeah, I think everything's going pretty good, Doc.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Shall we do the next question unless there are any additional comments? We're all going good? Let's have a look at the next slide, Jack 61. We're going well. We're going well. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Did this cause a lot of controversy, right? Now, as you know, Making a Murderer, the editors, they definitely edited part of Andrew Colborn's trial testimony during Stephen Avery's trial. No question about it. And this has been the subject of much discussion. And in actual fact, when a lot of people found out that Making a Murderer had edited part of Colborn's trial testimony, that made them very suspicious about Making a Murderer. That Making a Murderer was hiding the truth and manipulating this and manipulating that. I think we all agree that was a silly thing for the editors to do, right? Now, if you go through the trial testimony, which we have, essentially what the editors did was they removed a lot of filler, what I call filler material. It was an objection by Ken Kratz, and there was some chat with the judge, and then Dean Strang came back in. So if you look at the trial testimony that's presented in Making a Murderer, they definitely edited part of Andrew Colborn's testimony, but the gist, the outcome was not changed. The actual gist was exactly the same, the way Andrew Colborn answered. However, this incensed people. I know Candace got pissed off. Brenda, the whole lot. Andy Hale got upset. Oh, ma'am is all rubbish. We can't believe it now. So here's the question to my panel and in chat. Did editing of Colborn's trial testimony make him look like a liar? Yes or no? Jack 61, let's go around the panel. Jack 61.
No, it didn't change anything. And, for a lot of us that were around back then, we got the trial testimony by March of 2016. We knew that there was some alterations. It didn't change anything. It didn't affect me. And in fact, until we saw that this had been, that there was a few alterations, I hadn't really paid any attention. There's a couple other places too that it absolutely didn't change anything, in my opinion.
But did it change your mind?
No.
When you finally read the trial testimonies, and we did as a group, did it change your mind about anything or any aspect of Andrew Colborn?
No, I mean, it just irritated, like you said, it just irritated the shit out of me that they would edit that part out. They should have left it in and just moved on. But other than that, it didn't change my mind at all.
Okay, interesting. Thank you, Jack 61. And I'll be interested to see some of the answers in chat. Just Rhonda, do you think that editing made Andrew Colborn look like a liar? Just Rhonda.
I'm sorry to be so lame with my answer, but no, I think Andrew Colborn, regardless of editing, made himself look like a liar.
Okay. Interesting. Katie, do you think that editing made Andrew Colborn look like a liar?
No, I don't think so. But can I ask a question? What do guilters say? How did it change? I mean, what do they claim changed the content?
Well, yeah, the lawsuit claims that it defamed Colborn.
I don't understand. I guess I just don't get. I don't see it. I don't get it. And I guess they didn't either. So
the whole idea was that the editors were manipulating the trial testimony of Andrew Colborn for the sole purpose of making him look guilty, and as a consequence of that, it defamed him, caused him to have a lot of harassment phone calls because he looked guilty. Right?
I mean, I agree with Rhonda. He looks guilty. His body language makes him look guilty. So, cutting his testimony, splicing it, if it doesn't change the content of it, this isn't, once again, this is made for profit. They can't put, it can't be 60 hours long. You can't put it all in.
Correct.
No, I think Andy is his own worst enemy.
Okay, interesting. Because I put up the same analysis on X, and there was a very, very popular and retweeted post. When you look at it side by side, the gist, the content was not changed at all. Essentially, they removed an objection by Ken Kratz, some chat with the judge, and then Dean Strang basically restated the question in a different way, but the outcome was still yes. The answer was still yes. It didn't change the intent. Like, for example, if Making a Murderer changed his answer from a yes to a no and vice versa, that's criminal. But when the answer is still yes, is this what you would normally do when you're a patrol sergeant, ring in a number plate, and he changed the question with the same intent, and Andrew Colborn said yes. So that got people fired up big time. So now, you can't trust Making a Murderer. They're editing this, they're editing that, manipulating this. But the gist, the outcome was exactly the same. All right, thank you, Katie. What about you? I don't recall. Do you think it made him look like a liar?
No, I agree with what you just said. In the end, it was the same, same
Okay.
response.
Okay. But would you agree that it was a silly thing for the producers to
Yeah,
do, the
it
editors
would
to
have
do?
been. Yeah, it would have been better if they didn't, just because it caused a lot of, controversy. But
Correct. Yep, correct. What about yourself, Alice? Did that editing make Andrew Colborn look like a liar?
No, he made himself look like a liar. And the perfect instance for that is when Jerry played the 99 Toyota call. They just play it, and you hear Andy Colborn saying, 99 Toyota, yes, Andy. And then it stops. And then Jerry asks him the question, that was you. No, it wasn't me. So
Yeah, that
then they
wasn't
had to play it
again.
again. And it was, and he's like, is that you? And that's when he says, yeah, it must be.
Correct.
So he made himself look bad. Period. Period. It was him and his demeanor and his, his lying on the stand. Because if that's no a lie, what is? I mean, just take Amber Heard. You played it in court and she's like, no, that's not what I said. We just heard what you said, but still tried to deny it. And that's exactly what he done.
Which is very, very interesting. And this is just a little aside, because remember, Jack 61, remember, guys, during the civil suit, when the civil attorneys were reading back people's testimonies, especially Judy Dvorak's, who just looked at her own words and said, that's not my verbiage. And you're thinking, wait a minute, you're the one that wrote the report. It was denying that she'd even written this material, and it didn't look good. When Andrew Colborn said, when the judge asked him about, when Strang asked him about, did you say 99 Toyota? No, I thought it was a dispatcher. That didn't look good. Correct. Neverly, what about yourself? Did the editing make Andrew Colborn look like a liar?
No, I really do not. If you look at the big picture, the content of it, nothing changed. I could see how somebody like him would get irritated by the fact that they changed this minute detail. And if he wanted to pick a bone, like he did, he took advantage of the situation. But for everyone that has read the transcript, nothing has changed. And there you go. I think that this was just an opportune moment for him to scream foul and to cry wolf.
Correct, because they actually had Andrew Colborn on Convicting Murder go, remember when he went with his hands? Why are you changing my testimony? And I thought, oh my God. The outcome was exactly the same. The answer was still yes to the original question.
Yeah, I think that he found himself to be so important that they, how dare they change his testimony? Well, as I said, to repeat what you said or everybody else said, nothing has changed in the big picture.
Correct. Look, I'm also of the opinion that the changing the trial testimony when it was shown on Making a Murder was a silly thing to do. It would have probably taken them maybe an extra 1 minute or 2 minutes to have that intersection by Ken Kratz and the judge. But in terms of following the narrative, it played no role. The answer to the original question that Strang asked and then readdressed in a slightly different manner, but asking the same thing, the answer was still yes. But in effect, it was editing. It was a silly thing to do. But did it make him look guilty? No. I don't believe it did. It didn't make him look like a liar. He simply answered a slightly different question with the same intent. Yes. So it was a big storm in a team cup. But A lot of people got very, very angry of what Making a Murderer did. Yep, that is for sure. All right, guys, do we have any additional questions in chat? We're all going good?
Well, Dr. Silkman, I just wanted to kind of address something, and I think
Yes.
this may have caught my attention just because of Daniel's case. But anyway, Ronica Clax asked, do we know if law enforcement had video surveillance in their vehicle? And if so, is it possible to get a hold of a copy? I responded that I didn't believe that there was any, dash cam video or anything like that, or certainly any sort of GPS or AVL information at that time. So I guess I just was looking for clarification from the panel.
Yeah.
I don't know of any dash cam or any
I've never seen
GPS, any locator information that was ever talked about or provided on the state side. None.
I've never seen any. The only aerial surveillance is from the flyover, and that's been, you have to admit, that's been heavily edited, right, guys?
Oh my God!
Yeah, that's been heavily edited.
I'm not even sure why they bothered providing it. It's so heavily edited. It's terrible.
Correct. All right, guys. Shall we get on with the next slide? The next slide should be very, very easy to answer. And again, this is something that we've addressed before, but Convicting a Murderer always brings it up. And when they spoke to Detective O'Neill, remember, Detective O'Neill was the one that spoke with both Stephen and Brendan Dassey at Crivets. Detective O'Neill made the comment, jeepers, Stephen liked to talk. And that's where they got the information about Stephen Avery's burn barrel, because Detective O'Neill was asking Stephen, oh, do you have burn barrels on the property? Yeah, my sister's got some. I've got one, my brother, his mum, etc., etc. So here's the question. Was Stephen's greatest enemy actually himself? In other words, is it correct with what Detective O'Neill said, that because Stephen liked to talk a lot, he was his own worst enemy, as we can now hear in the phone calls? So a simple yes or no. Jack 61, was Stephen's greatest enemy himself?
I think so, and I have one caveat to add. And I've looked at this particular episode and others where this guy O'Neill was involved, and I have to ask the question: why was he so heavily involved? It wasn't even his county. I just don't get it. But it is what it is.
Interesting. Okay,
but yes, he is his own worst enemy by running his mouth. That's absolutely true.
Just Rhonda.
Absolutely. He should be the poster child of never speak to law enforcement without an attorney. But he just, even upon advice from his attorneys, he still just can't resist, saying something to try to prove his innocence. Like, the next statement that I make is going to be the one that's going to convince everybody. He just can't. And he absolutely hurts himself.
Yep. Okay, I agree. Katie, are you there? Was Stephen his own greatest enemy? Or Katie may have stepped out. Shall we go to, I don't recall. We'll get back to Katie. I don't recall.
I believe I believe he was, yes, a lot of times. But it, like, especially when he was in jail on the calls, it's kind of understandable, even though he should have known better. But yeah, he was.
Interesting. Thank you so much. I don't recall. Alice, was Stephen his own greatest enemy?
I don't know if he was his greatest enemy. He couldn't keep his mouth shut. So yeah, that went against him. I mean, even his lawyer told him, "Look, shut up." You know what I mean? I think he was on the phone to him while Or Ma
Yes.
was outside the car on the phone to the lawyer and she's chatting the window, the police motor going, the lawyer's saying you have to shut bloody up. You know,
Correct.
so yeah, that part, yeah, he didn't do himself any favours. But on the other hand, I completely understand why he was the way he was. Speaking to anybody, speaking to everybody, every newsletter he could, every reporter he could, every police he could, because his voice wasn't heard. In 85 to 2003, Stephen Avery's voice was not heard about being innocent. So this time round, he was going to shout to the highest heavens and shout to anybody and everybody that he was innocent. Anybody that would listen, he was going to tell them he was innocent, whether that was police, lawyers, reporters, journalists, whatever. You know, I guarantee you anybody could have walked up to him in the street and went, so you guilty, Stephen? And he'd be like, I'm a fuck. You know what I mean? And then tell them a whole story. You know, why? Because he wanted his voice heard. Because it didn't get heard. It wasn't heard the first time around. So yes and no is my answer. Yes, opening and talking and all that. He didn't do himself any favours, really, you know.
Correct.
Definitely. But you must also see the other side of it, Doc, you know, like he was silenced before. So this time he wasn't going to be silenced again.
Yep. But do you think he had an awful suspicion? Let's go with the presumption of innocence. Do you think he had a suspicion that he was going to get arrested again? It was going to happen to him again?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Even Kim DeCat told him in 2003 when he got released, watch your back, Stephen, because they ain't done with you, son. So watch your back. And that's what Kim DeCat. What happened.
That's what Kim DeCat said to him.
Yep.
Yeah, Kim DeCat in Man 1. It's in Man 1, and she's on camera, and she says that she told him in 2003 when he was released, they're not done with you, son. You better watch your back. And he's probably went, nah, I'll be fine. You know what I mean? They've got nothing on me. I'm not going to do anything stupid, so they'll not be able to get me for nothing. You know? And then he's probably just been blasé about his life and no thinking and everything like that. And then he's let his guard down because he's been out 2 years and he's let his guard down, and then bam, they've come in and they've hit him with this, you know.
Yep. It would have been a terrible situation for Stephen. All jokes aside, there's no winning position. If he had kept quiet, then the law officers would have seen it as an admittance of guilt, that he's hiding something. That's exactly what the accusations were against Brendan. And even O'Neill said it. I felt that Brendan Dassey was hiding things, right? So if Stephen said, look, don't talk to me, talk to my attorneys, that would have been that would have taken it as an admittance of either guilt or hiding something. If Stephen talked, which he did at all opportunities and occasions, he talked to law enforcement, he also talked to the press, right? Detective O'Neill even laughed. Why? Because he even said Stephen liked to talk and he liked to trip Stephen up. Oh, yesterday you said this. And so, you know how Stephen is. He's not the sharpest, he doesn't have the sharpest intellectual mind. He basically cornered himself into a situation he couldn't get out of because they thought he was lying. So in effect, he was his own worst enemy, but could understand why he did it. And what's going to happen next to him explains it perfectly. Neville, do you think Stephen was his own greatest enemy? And why?
In a way, yes, because he wasn't following his attorney's advice, which gave a lot of material for the law enforcement to use against him, whatever he said. However, my thought just escaped my amygdala, and I
Oh,
apologize.
no.
I was gonna,
You got
I
hijacked.
was gonna, yeah, it totally got hijacked. Oh man, it was a good point.
All right. We'll get back to you in a second, Everly. I want to ask people in chat. Be honest, and on the panel, be honest. A law enforcement officer comes to you out of the blue and starts asking you questions. Do you answer them yes or no? Jack
I
61.
remember what I wanted to say.
What were you
Sorry.
going to say, Neverly?
To answer your question, yes, I would probably talk to the law enforcement because I was raised that way, man. You know, it's kind of
Okay.
intimidating to say, I don't want to talk to you. I need my lawyer.
Okay. All right.
Right?
Yep. Okay, Neverly. So, Jack 61, would you talk to a law enforcement officer if you started to get asked questions?
Well, it would depend on the situation, but in that situation, in Stevens, not one chance in hell. No way.
Okay. Just Rhonda, would you be answering questions to police officers?
Not a word.
Wow. Katie, what about yourself? Are you back, or maybe she's just stepped out? Probably still stepped
She
out.
stepped out.
Okay. I don't recall. Would you start talking to law enforcement officers?
Well, it would depend, like Jack said, it would depend on what they're asking about, but I would be very wary.
Okay. But if you were in Stephen's situation, would you be talking to law enforcement?
No.
Okay. Interesting. Alice, would you be talking to law enforcement officers?
Like other panel members have said, it would depend. But if I was in Stephen's situation, then no, I would not. I wouldn't even want them to be near me after what happened in '85. With the police and everything like that, they'd be getting told, go away. Here's the number for my lawyer. You want to speak to me? Get in touch with him, and then I'll come and speak to you. No problem.
Interesting. Just wondered, did you have a comment? I'll get to you.
I do.
Yep.
Sorry, I just kind of wanted to add the entire purpose for law enforcement talking to you about a thing, a particular case, or just, in that situation specifically, for sure, they're trying to build a case, and they'll build a case against you if you give them the opportunity. That's the way they operate. That's their job. That's how they get.
Yeah, they want a conclusion. They want a conclusion, right?
And they will twist even the most simple statement that you make, professing your innocence or where you were. They will twist it any way they can to pin something on you. So that's why I just can't I can't get behind speaking to law enforcement without representation.
Okay. Thank you, Just Rhonda. Neverly, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I wanted to say, in regards to Stephen being his worst enemy and talking to everybody against his attorney's advice, would a guilty person choose to do that? You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
If he were guilty, he'd probably shut up. He knows that much. I believe that Stephen honestly talked to them because he had nothing to hide. He let him in the house, on the property.
Yes.
Without a warrant.
He did.
So it goes both ways.
You did it twice.
But yeah. But overall, if I were in his position, knowing what I know now, I'd made a comment. No, I don't want to talk to you about that. Knowing what I know now. At the time, I would have probably talked.
Interesting.
How about you?
If I was in Stephen's position, no, I would not. I would have just showed them the card of my attorney or attorneys and say, you want to talk to me, you go through them. But unfortunately, with Stephen's personality and character, he could not help himself, because I do agree. If you're guilty, you want to hide it and disguise it, right? These are trained law enforcement officers. They know whether you're being deceptive, basically trying to say, I'm not guilty, but in actual fact you are, because Remaker said, look, remember Jack 61, Remaker said, remember guys, he said, I don't think he's got anything to do with this, right?
Yeah, that's what he told Herman, whoever, I think it was Herman he was talking to that morning at 5 a.m.
Yep. But the sad thing is that the reality, I do agree with Just Rhonda. Law enforcement are trying to build a case up against you. And that happened against Brendan Dassey. The day that he spoke with Detective O'Neill, and I think it was Baldwin, in the police car, and Brendan Dassey changed his narrative twice. Boom, red flags went up. Okay, so now he actually saw Teresa Horbach in her vehicle and Stephen Avery. So that immediately put Brendan Dassey in the limelight. Stephen was professing his innocence. He spoke to the press. He even invited a press agent to where he was at Crivets. They came in, they did an interview. He was open, he was honest. Unfortunately, got him nowhere. All right, interesting. Guys, do we have any questions in chat? Are we going okay? Well, going good?
I think we're going okay, Doc.
Okay, let's do number 9, slide number 9. We're working through this.
Just a second. Somebody in chat said that whether he talked or not, it wouldn't actually make any difference. And I believe that as well.
Yeah, in the end, no, you're correct.
It was random pieces. She said, I don't think Stephen shut up or quiet would have made any difference.
No, that's correct. But I have an awful feeling and suspicion that he knew what was going to happen. He had an awful suspicion that he was going to get arrested, and he was. And we'll talk about that in a second. But this one, oh boy, Making a Murderer was absolutely trounced for not talking about the burn barrel, Stephen Avery's burn barrel, and the burnt electronics, right? Because the questions were asked, well, how did Teresa's electronics get placed in Stephen Avery's burn barrel? It must have been because Stephen had burnt them, right? And it was very interesting that the burnt electronics were found by an MTSO officer on November the 7th, David Siders. He was part of Search Team A, which Mike Bushman was also part of Search Team A. And when they finally checked the contents of the burn barrel, they found the burnt remains of a cell phone, a PDA, and I believe a camera. These items were sent to the FBI, but my understanding, guys, is that they couldn't find the serial numbers, but it's highly suggestive that they were the burnt electronics of Teresa Horbach. Although,
well, Doc, not only that, and it really irritated me that Fassbender said it was her stuff.
Yes.
He made a conclusion, and he can't prove that, and it's really misleading.
Correct, but wasn't it interesting in one of the phone calls yesterday? I think it was.
Between Barb and Jody. You damn right.
It could have been an old cell phone. It could have been an old this or an old that. Because isn't that very, very interesting? But
but what Barb said, that the electronics were supposed to be under the burn barrel, not in it. That's what she was told. Well, that's what we think she was told.
Yep. So you can clearly see that there are electronic components that have been burnt in that burn barrel. And in Convicting a Murderer, they talked about the fact that, oh, we've got testimony that proves that Stephen was burning, but that we went through the trial testimonies and they are very, very dodgy indeed. You've got who have we got? We had Brendan Dassey talk to the law enforcement officers about the not seeing the electronics. He saw the electronics underneath garbage bags, and they asked him, you know, what made you go to the burn barrel? Oh, I decided to walk up to it because it was full. And you're thinking, wait a minute, what's a 16-year-old kid walking up to a burn barrel just to check the contents of a burn barrel?
Well, there was a wheel on top of everything. How did he see anything? It's
I know.
Crazy statement. Yeah.
No. And then we've got Blaine Dassey, who said that, oh, you know, I saw my uncle walk from his trailer, put a plastic bag inside the burn barrel, and it was on fire. There was smoke coming from the burn barrel, which is really funny because then after, in an affidavit, he said, no, I made up the story about the fire, right?
Yep.
And to make matters worse, they asked Brendan, well, I went home with my brother. We walked straight to our trailer and they asked him, did you see Stephen come out with any garbage bags and place them in his own burn barrel? And he goes, no. So how can Blaine see Steve and Brendan Dassey, who's with Blaine, doesn't see Stephen? It doesn't make any sense at all. And the other thing, which is crazy, is that Robert Fabian goes, oh, yeah, I stopped with Earl in between the garage and the trailer, and smoke came into my face.
Yeah, if Susan were here, she'd be giving everybody an earful about these statements of Earl and Robert Fabian, but I'll let you do it, Doc.
Correct. That they may have got the days completely wrong. And Kathleen Zellner said that, and also we showed that the wind was blowing in the opposite direction to where Robert Fabian was, and there's no way that there could have been smoke. But to make things even more damning, he never said anything about a fire in the burn pit or smelling anything, right? So a lot of things,
and they were right there between the house and the garage.
They were right there, right? So it didn't make a lot of sense at all. But the burnt electronics, here's the question. Oh, I can't answer it. Why would Stephen place Teresa's electronics in his burn barrel if he's going to have a great big whopping fire? Now, if he was concerned that someone may ring the phone or whatever, all he had to do was turn it off or remove the battery. Now, Stephen's obviously used mobile phones before because when they went in his house, he's got a lot of them broken in pieces, etc., etc. So why would, and there's a question in chat too, why would Stephen place Teresa's electronics in a burn barrel, light another fire, which potentially can cause a tension, right? If he had a great big whopping fire going, why not put everything together, get rid of everything, dispose everything at once? Why would he put him in his own burn barrel? At Jack 61.
Yeah, I can't answer that one. It doesn't make any sense. And, you know, even more, he could have just taken, if he actually had possession of either one of those devices, he could have taken them, thrown them off in a river or pond, and they would have never been found. They'd been gone forever.
Okay. Thanks, Jack 61. Just Rhonda, why would he burn Teresa's electronics in his own burn barrel?
Oh, for fuck's sake, Doc, why would he do any of the shit that they said he did? I mean, none of it makes sense. It's so frustrating because they make him sound like a stupid, brainless idiot.
Except he's
but at the same time,
a forensic guru.
Yes, but at the same time, he is so intellectually smart and clever that, you know, you could do all these other things. It's so infuriating and so much bullshit that it just really is hard to take any of that side the law enforcement side serious. It really is. For me.
Okay, interesting. Thank you, Just Rhonda. Katie, are you back? No, Katie may have stepped aside. Okay, I don't recall. Why would Stephen burn Teresa's electronics in his own burn barrel?
Good question. It makes no sense. He didn't do any of it, but if he had a big whopping fire, why not toss them in that or in a pond or something like somebody else said?
Okay. Now, before I ask Alice, mobile phone batteries, don't they tend to explode when they're caught on fire? And if you have used the tire as an accelerant or whatever in that burn barrel, how come there's pieces of plastic and glass that have survived that fire? Because you can see from the electronic pieces, most of them are recognizable and some are still intact. How can that possibly be? Alice?
Yes, it's just ridiculous, Doc. Any murderer, I don't care who it is, any murderer does not leave the evidence anywhere near their own frigging property. What do? They go to the woods, they take it. If it's items like phones, wallet, keys, stuff, they shove it in a bag, they take it away and they bury it. Or they throw it off a bridge or something like that, For them to say what they're saying about Stephen, then all I've got to say is no wonder he is where he is, because he was stupid enough to leave these items, air quotes, on his property. It is just, it's ludicrous. And I have tried looking at it for the other side and everything like that, and I just cannot see it. It does not fit in. He was smart enough to be able to clean up every speck of DNA belonging to him, Teresa, and Brendan out of the garage, out of the bedroom, out of the trailer, everything like that. He's going to go all out of the trouble of doing that and cleaning all that DNA and everything like that should have been there if this happened, and it wasn't. But he's
Correct.
going to be daft enough to leave the electronics in a burn barrel on his property. He's going to be daft enough to leave her vehicle on his property. I mean, come on. It doesn't take Columbo to work it out. You know what I mean?
But what is crazy? Let's think about this, right? According to Blaine and Robert Fabian, and I know there's plenty of problems with both of their testimonies, and also Brendan Dassey, if they're saying that Stephen had placed plastic bags in his burn barrel on October the 31st and he put it on fire, burnt electronics, don't you think you would go back between October the 31st and before you go to Crivets and just check the contents of the burn barrel to make sure there's nothing recognizable?
Of course you would.
Ace, right? Like, wouldn't you check your own burn pit to make sure there are no bone fragments just out in the open?
Of course you would.
Where anybody could just walk by, like Sturdivant and Sergeant Jason Jost did, and said, "Oh shit, there are bone fragments in that burn pit. I think we need to investigate." Stephen did none of that. Jack 61. Am I missing something here? There's something not right.
Something's wrong here. The story doesn't work. It doesn't add up. Even for someone that's just, Stephen's not the sharpest tool in the shed. We've said that.
Yep.
But even he knows he can't leave all this shit laying around. There's no way.
Yep. Correct. The point I'm trying to make is this. Now, Convicting a Murderer was scathing on Making a Murderer for not talking about the burnt electronics, right? So I just want to ask Neverly before I continue. Neverly, sorry, Alice, did you finish your comment?
Oh, yeah, Doc, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Neverly, why would Stephen burn or place Teresa Halbach's electronics in his own burn barrel right at the front of his house?
Probably for the same reason why he would leave the RAV on the property, why he would burn Teresa in the burn pit, and all the other stupid stuff that was he was accused of. I don't know the other answer.
Look, I cannot work it out.
No.
But what is very, very interesting. Now, again, I'm not accusing anybody of doing anything. Kennedy, who was on the Avery salvage yard looking for Chuck Avery at about the time that Teresa was meant to be there. Kennedy couldn't find Chuck for over 5 minutes, and normally he's always in his office. Kennedy made a very interesting remark in the DCI report. Does anyone remember what it was? What did Kennedy smell? Jack 61. Do you remember what Kennedy
Cigarette
said?
smoke.
No, not cigarette smoke, but smoke coming from the pit area. Not where Stephen was, from the pit area.
I can't remember, Doc.
Yeah. So that's what Kennedy wrote in the DCI report. So interesting that why would somebody be burning something in the pit area, right? If Stephen was meant to be burning electronics where he was. Interesting. Kennedy said that was very strange that Chuck was missing at that crucial time point. Interesting. Food for thought. So, guys, can anyone answer the question? Why would Stephen burn Teresa's electron? What do people in chat say? What are they saying?
I haven't been looking at chat, but I will.
Yep. Somebody said because he wanted to return to jail.
Yeah, Alligator 57 says, is it my understanding that burned electronics were under the tire rim? Is that substantiated?
Well, Siders said that before he could look into the burn barrel, he had to pull a tire out. And the tire clearly was burnt to the rim. And there was just tire wire, and it was heavily rusted. I don't know whether they found any tire residue on the burnt electronics. That I do not know. Yeah, so the photographs that we've seen of the burn barrel, you can actually see the tire removed and placed to the side of the burn barrel. Correct. And Siders in court said that he had to remove it. He actually removed it to see underneath. Correct. But Brendan Dassey never mentioned seeing a tire.
No, he didn't.
The whole thing, like if you burn a tire, it's going to be thick black smoke. Crazy. That's just going to draw attention to yourself. So, guys, we can't answer the question. Why would Stephen place Teresa's electronics in his burn barrel? We can't answer it.
No.
Guys, shall we do, Jack 61, I'll leave it up to you. Shall we do one more and we can continue this tomorrow as a part two?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've nearly done over 2.5 hours. I don't want to rush it. We've got because we're now entering another section where we can literally talk for hours. So, guys, shall we just do just this one here?
Works for me, Doc. Wherever you want to do cut it, and then we can do part 2 tomorrow.
Yeah. Is everyone happy in chat for us? Would you do one more? Because there's a lot to cover. Is everyone happy with that? Okay.
I don't like it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's do this one. Let me tell you right now, if you wanted Andrew Colborn to look bad, it involved the finding of the key, right? Now, I'll tell you right now, Andrew Colborn can't explain it. He's got no answers. Ken Kratz could not explain it. He's got no answers. And he was really, really angry. And guys, when it comes to the finding of the key, I'm afraid we have entered the twilight zone. That something bizarre took place in Stephen Avery's bedroom and no one can explain it. So essentially, there were photos that were taken pre-finding the key and after finding the key. And what you find is on top of the cabinet, there are coins and there are other items. And what Andrew Colborn said he did was, right, guys, he went up to the cabinet. He got upset with Stephen Avery's porn collection because they were shoving the documents back into the cabinet. Though he was so upset that he literally shaped and twisted the cabinet. And lo and behold, when James Lenk walked out, he had to go get some boxes and bags to collect Stephen Avery's porn. Kaczarski was sitting on the bed. He never heard a key fall. When Lenk came in, he said, "Oh, look, there's a key." And the narrative is that they were shoving in the documents into the cabinet so hard, they broke the back of the cabinet and the key magically went around the cabinet and landed in front of the slippers. So here's the question to the panel. This is our final one that we'll do today. No one can explain it. Colborn can't explain it. Lenk can't explain it. Kaczarski's got no idea. And Kratz went crazy. What did he say, Jack 61? What did they just now do to his case?
You guys just fucked my case.
Right? So here's the question to the panel and chat. How do you shake and twist a cabinet without the coins falling off? And what is damning is that Andrew Colborn said, "I didn't even realize there were coins on the cabinet." He cannot explain it. He said that he picked up the cabinet, shook it, and the key popped out. So here's the question. How do you shake and twist the cabinet without anything on the top of the cabinet falling to the ground? Jack 61.
Don't believe one single word of it. Not one. Sorry, I don't. The cabinet story falls apart. I mean, unless we start going into, I guess, quantum physics and the fantasy world, there's no way to explain what he's talking about. That stuff would have moved. Also, the police they're not going to put shit back in there. And especially, why would they do it roughly? There's plenty of room in that cabinet. You can see the photos. There's plenty of room for that book, that big heavy binder, and some of the other books. There's tons of room in there. There's no need to shove anything anywhere. It's bullshit. I don't believe a word of it, Doc.
What is super freaky, guys, is that James Lenk was asked in court, when you took out all the books, were you able to look inside the cabinet? And he goes, yes. I said to him, did you see a blue fob or a key? And no. James Lenk said, no. So where on God's earth did this key come from? And that is why Andrew Colborn had to change his narrative when he wrote the email to his boss. Right, guys? Right. He had to go, wait a minute. If Lenk didn't see the key in the cabinet, where the hell did this key come from? And he had to change his narrative by saying the key was heavily hidden behind the cupboard. Right? Oh. But, guys, there's a problem, right, Jack 61? How can you shake a cabinet and nothing from the top falls off, Jack 61?
That's right. The coins didn't move. I'm sorry. I don't believe him. I just don't. My opinion.
Okay. Interesting. Alice, how do you explain that? How do you explain shaking a cabinet with nothing falling off?
You can't, unless they glued it on first, Doc.
Super. Somebody said super. Somebody said super glue.
Yeah, they picked everything up, they glued it, and then Andy and his vigorous, strength, it shook it apart, and the only thing that fell out was a key. The money never moved, the remote control never moved, nothing moved apart from a key. It's fucking ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous.
Okay.
And I don't honestly know how they got away with the bullshit that they got away with in this case, Doc. I really don't.
Correct. Well, what was very interesting, and we'll continue in a second. They spoke to all the case enthusiasts, and all of them shook their heads. Right, guys? Not even they could explain it. Something did not make sense.
And that's why Kratz, in his closing, asked the jury to set the key aside. Can't we just set that key aside and not worry about it, basically?
Yep.
I'm paraphrasing, of course, but...
No. Correct. And don't worry. Case enthusiast Dave says almost exactly the same thing. The key, instead of being a very important critical finding, was an embarrassment because none of them could explain, despite having a babysitter who sat on the bed, mind you, who was meant to be supervising Lincoln Colborn, he could not explain it either. Katie. Sorry.
Kacharski was supposed to find that key. I'm sure of it.
He was the one that was meant to find it.
He literally probably 24 inches from it, maybe 30.
Correct.
He was right there.
Correct. And he said he didn't see the key until it was pointed out by Link. All right. Now, Katie, can you explain the Twilight Zone for us, please? How can you shake a cabinet and none of those coins fall off the cabinet? How can that happen?
Well, here's what happened. So Stephen spilled a Dr. Pepper on that cabinet, and then all of those coins stuck to the top of the cabinet. That's what happened.
Gotcha.
I don't know why King Kratz didn't think of that.
He should have.
Wait, y'all just need to go home now, Doc. Kay has solved it.
Right. Case closed.
Nailed it.
All these stupid fucking idiots can't figure this shit out. Come on.
Okay, guys. I want to say that the podcast is finished. The case is solved. It was a damn Dr. Pepper that did it.
Well, Eric Coase is going to be pissed. All I can say.
Correct.
Well, I mean, come on. I went to the King Kratz School of Detective, whatever.
Okay, interesting. So, in other words, you can't really explain it, right?
Right. It's ridiculous. Come on, man. Everything about that cabinet and the key and the coins, putting the things back, I mean, cleaning up after oneself as someone who comes in and searches and trashes a place, that doesn't happen.
Well, in all
seriousness, fly out sideways. Coins don't stick to the top of a cabinet. You don't jam books back into the cabinet without busting the back off of it, really, and the back wasn't busted off of it. We looked at that last week. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, they fucked his case.
Yep. I mean, all jokes aside, on the evening of November the 5th, they were in there, I think, for about 2.5 hours. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Are you trying to tell me it would have taken no more than 1 minute to take out those documents, search for any potential evidence, notice that there was nothing there, place them back in? Now, remember, Stephen Avery had left the property from November the 5th. There were no family members on that property who weren't, if they were allowed back in, they were supervised and watched. That means that somehow that key got in there between November the 5th and November the 8th. Right,
That's right,
guys?
and it wasn't a family member.
It was not a family member. It could not have been a family member. So how was a family member going to sneak in there and leave a key right in that spot there? Because Fassbender and Kratz kept on saying, hey, look, if we wanted to frame him, we would have stuck it out in the open, right? But that would have been better than the story that they concocted trying to explain the key. Alice, do you have a comment?
Yeah, well, it's actually a question, Doc. I mean, there's that much information that you need to take in this case that sometimes it's hard to keep track. But was it Jerry or Dean? It was either in court or one of the pre-trials, maybe. Did he not actually mention something about the cabinet in court and how Kratz and that hasn't entered it into evidence? And I see. I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly or not, or if it's because we've read it. Do you know what I'm saying, Doc? But I'm sure.
I'm not sure when they. I have to check case or when they subpoenaed the cabinet. Does anyone know?
It was in Ma'am, where
I think it was 11th or 12th of December.
Well, okay, so it wasn't in the trial. It was prior to the trial that.
Oh yeah, It was like a month later. They went back and got it.
Okay.
Correct. I reckon that they foresaw the issue with the key. They had to explain the key because remember, Ken Kratz wrote to all the officers and said, you need to write this up. You need to explain it because this looks very, very suspicious. Yep.
Well, in MAM, when Jerry's about to drop the key, but then he didn't. Was that in the trial or was that prior?
That was in the trial.
Okay.
So basically, Buting was basically mocking the attorneys, the state attorneys, saying, so this key magically went around the corner and plonked on the ground. And he held it and he was going to drop it. And Kratz objected and said, Judge, what are we doing here? An experiment, right? Because he knew
he was about to have a meltdown.
He was going to have another freaking meltdown because if he dropped the key, the next obvious question was, did any of you guys hear this metal object hitting the back of the cabinet or hitting on the ground? That would have been the next question.
That's right.
Kratz prevented Buting from dropping the key because he knew how damning it was.
Yeah. See if I was a sneaky lawyer.
He would have dropped it.
He should have picked it up and accidentally bumped the key off the table and went, oops, oh, I'm so sorry, Your Honor. I'm really, instead of asking permission, sometimes they say it's better today and then ask permission later, sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Better to see. So, that's why Kratz worked.
I so wish he just did it when he picked up the key and just went, oh, sorry, Your Honor, before Kratz could even object, and we all know why he did that, because he knew. Was a shot him right in the foot. He knew if that hit that carpet or that fire, it would have made some sort of thump or thud or bump or bang or something, even though it was on carpet. And then that would have been the opening for Jerry and Dean to go, well, did you hear that noise? And then that's it. They would have been fucked.
Yeah, 100% correct. Because Kratz knew no one could explain the key. In an actual fact, to tell you the truth, it actually made Colborn look even more foolish in convicting a murder with him trying to explain the unexplainable. Neverly, how do you explain that you can twist and turn a cabinet and none of the coins fall off, but a key does? How do you work that one out?
I agree with Katie's solution to the problem, except that I think that it's Mountain Dew, not cherry Pepsi.
Mountain Dew.
Yeah, that's a rhetorical question at this point. Nobody can explain that because, plus, even if they shook the cabinet and the way they described it, the gravity was taking an effect diagonally. So the key fell kind of diagonally, not like dropped as if, like, remember Newton and the apple, it just drops down straight.
Right down.
So yeah, this was kind of in a diagonal fashion. So there you go.
Right.
Hey guys, I'm gonna take an opportunity to thank everybody, Dr. Silkman, and everybody on the panel and in chat. I need to bounce. I'm going to a Christmas ornament exchange party at my boss's
nice.
house. Yeah.
Well, we're finishing up in a couple of
Yes. I'll continue to listen in from the car. But thank you. This was great.
Thank you so much, Beverly. Correct.
You're
welcome.
have fun, Everly.
Thank you. Oh,
take care.
Hold on, wrong button.
Yeah. For me, this was a sheer embarrassment. It raises so many questions, right? To me, if the key was planted, I believe it was. Stephen is not that stupid to place the key in his own cabinet. For a start, he works with cars, he's crushed vehicles. You don't need the key. You do not need the key because you need an end loader to pick up the car, bring it to the crusher, and then crush it. Furthermore, you need to make sure that you have to remove all the car components from the vehicle before you crush it. And the other problem is that if you try to crush the vehicle with petrol inside, gasoline inside, you can potentially cause an explosion or a fire. But the big problem about crushing a vehicle is that it makes noise, right? So how was he going to crush this vehicle with his brothers around, other family members around, members of the public around, and also workers in Redon's quarry? Anybody could have been there. The whole notion and concept of crushing the vehicle is crazy. So Stephen didn't need the key. And in actual fact, I think in one of his affidavits or one of his talks, he goes, look, I could have hot started it if I needed to. I don't need a key, right? So it's interesting. And Jack 61 made that very important point. Ken Kratz was so embarrassed by the key, he had to step away from it. So
he ran like a dog from it. He did. Yep. He wanted to distance that key from the jury. He knew how bad it was.
Yep. So here's the irony. Strang and Buting all along saying these officers were involved in planting. They were involved in planting. Ken Kratz talked about that very possibility in his closing statement by saying, please forgive these officers for planting this key. Put aside the key. The key has got no bearing on this case. So the person who talked about the possibility of planting by law enforcement officers was Ken Kratz himself.
Absolutely.
Strang and Buting must have been looking at each other thinking, what the hell have we gotten into? Here's the problem. And Alice made the point before. If the officers planted the key, where did they get the key? They got the key either from Teresa's house. That's a possibility. The other likelihood was that it was in the vehicle. And they detached it from the lanyard and thought, yep, all we have to do is introduce it in Stephen's house. We find it. Oh, God, that's going to look bad. And why? Because tomorrow when we come back and look at the actual key, guess what they find on the key?
Stephen's DNA.
This is like Disneyland. If you were to write a crime novel, you couldn't even think of this. The victim's vehicle's key that she would have used personally doesn't contain any of her DNA. Oh, no. It contains DNA from only Stephen Avery. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. So I can't explain it. Why an adult got so upset with the mainstream pornographic magazines that they shake the cabinet so violently that they smashed the back door and none of the coins or telephone or other components fell off, it was embarrassing, right? Because the problem is the photos show the shoes were away from the cabinet. So it can't be that all of a sudden the key was underneath the shoes. No, the story was they shook the cabinet so violently that the key magically found itself on the carpet. I don't know, guys. That's completely crazy. Jack61.
Well, yeah, Kratz knew right away that this is going to be trouble with these three, especially these two officers. This late stage in the investigation, they walk out of there with that key. He knew how big of a problem it was.
Correct. And like I said, those two attorneys, will be finishing in a sec, guys. Those two attorneys made it a really big deal that they wrote this report in such a fine detail. Oh, we changed gloves. We did this, because they knew they got caught red-handed, guys.
That's right. That's right.
All right.
Yeah. Well, we've got a few questions, Doc, that
Yeah.
could possibly be answered with quick answers.
Okay.
Random PC says, question, did they use Stephen's words against him in court? He didn't tell them where to find the evidence.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Next question was from Random PCs again. Was the recording cleaned up and the supposed background voice debunked?
Was that about the license plate call?
Yeah.
Was that
I
about?
think so.
Yeah,
Where
that's
supposed to be somebody in the background saying,
yeah.
"Is it hers? This is hers," or something like that.
Yeah.
The car is here, and I can tell you that I gave the recording to
Andy B,
and he's I know he's got other things to do, but I know he's working on it. So as soon as he gets that cleared up, we will certainly play it live, let everybody hear what he's got.
Awesome.
Okay. The next one from Random PCs again. Do we know when New was notified of missing person?
It was on November the 3rd.
Yeah.
Are they referring to the law enforcement? It was on November the 3rd. Correct.
I think maybe she meant the news.
The news on the night. On that night. On
Like
November
the 10 o'clock news or whatever.
I think it was on the 10 o'clock news. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Next one, Graham Moss. What day and date was he told about the RAV4 at the petrol station?
On the 4th, I believe. I believe it was the 4th. Correct.
Yeah, that sounds right, Doc.
Okay. Clive was why was the bookcase omitted from Stephen's trial? Whereas if it had been included, Colborn could have showed us all how he shook the cabinet with the coins on the shelf and the magazines.
That was an opportunity lost, right?
Yeah.
It was another attorney. That's exactly what they would have done. They would have said, "Here's the cabinet before. Here's the cabinet after. Judge, jury, what do you notice can't happen here?" Right? Which then brings the credibility of Andrew Colborn, Lenk, and Kaczynski into play. Did they collude together to make a narrative? And that's when it starts to look really bad. And that's why Ken Kratz was very, very upset. Correct.
Yep. Okay. Next one is from Graham Moss. If Ma'am made Colborn look bad, did they make Scott Tadich, Bobby, and the rest? No, I don't know if they made them look bad. It put more questions in about them, especially their alibi and things like that. I mean, that's just my opinion.
That was more in MAM 2. Yep, that's when Kathleen Zellner took the case on, and there was more questions asked about Bobby Dassey and Scott Tadich, but not really so much in MAM 1. Correct. Okay, one more question, guys. One more question.
Yeah, we've got a few more.
Okay.
Our Cherie, I don't recall, says, why did Andy's wife say he was anxious and afraid he was going to prison during Stephen's trial? Guilty conscience?
That was
Possibly.
revealed in the Colborn v. Netflix case and the affidavit she wrote. It was an interesting comment, Barry, and a good
Yep.
one, Cherie.
Interesting.
Yep, it sure
Yeah, it
was.
was kind of a rhetorical question, you know.
But it's a good question, though, because, yeah, I think he would have been crapping his pants waiting for a chap at the door, you know what I mean? Double D, if that's the case, would cell calls from law enforcement to law enforcement not be picked up on a scanner? No,
No.
because they can turn the radios down or off when they're on the when they go onto a mobile phone. You know, they can kind of mute the radio so nothing is going through.
Well, unless they've got their mic keyed up, there's not going to hear anything from a
Correct.
cell phone conversation.
Correct.
Okay, a couple more. Passive Bear, did Link get the same treatment?
There were accusations. He got nasty emails and calls. I think he got harassment as well, but I don't think to the same degree, I could be wrong, that Andrew Colborn experienced. But certainly Link was a target as well, which again is wrong. Yep, definitely.
Yep. Okay, next one is Hugh Fraser. Great to have you in chat, Fraser. He says, Chris, is his broken record style mention of his high functioning autism or a deliberate tactic to provide a no blame excuse for a time when that became undeniable? I think he's maybe meaning when we say about Stephen's IQ. And his broken record style mention.
I can't answer that one.
Yep, I can't answer that one. Yep. Yeah. Who claimed that they had autism?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
I think some people have, kind of leaned that way, but I don't think there's ever been a real diagnosis, right? So.
Yeah.
No. Last two, Doc. Anthony House, what is the evidence tag number of the 2003 key set found by Colborn on the 5th? And was this used in Stephen's trial?
I don't have the tag number handy, but I know exactly what they're talking about. There was a set of keys that had a 2003 tag, and they had the same blue fob. And I know that Jeff Jones did a podcast on that one.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up. I don't remember.
It was on keys that was found in Stephen's. And to me, that's nothing. That could have been somebody that got him that key ring of his daughter or anybody.
Could have been found in a junk car.
Yeah. Yep. Correct. We have one more question.
One more.
Yep. One more, and that's us, and that's from Trav.
Yep.
Last week you talked about the key, devil's advocate. Could it be possible that Stephen bled on the key and then washed it, removing Teresa's DNA, and then handling it again, putting his own DNA?
We'll talk about that in tomorrow's podcast, because that's the impression that they were trying to say, that remember, it was Stephen that was meant to be bleeding, right? So hence he left blood on the key, and that's Teresa Hallbach's key. One would expect that if you're handling your own property for a long period of time, you would expect some of your skin cells, touch DNA to be present on that key somewhere. So it seems bizarre that Stephen would somehow be able to clean the key of only Teresa Hallbach's DNA. And if he did that, why would he then touch the key himself? to leave his own DNA, right?
Exactly.
If you're going to handle the key, right, if you wipe the key down, then you know that in the back of your mind, oh, wait, they could potentially find forensic evidence on this key. So if you go to the trouble of cleaning the key, you would wear a glove or use some type of cloth to make sure that your own DNA doesn't go back on the key. And what is damning is that when Colborn looked at the key, she found no evidence of blood. She found no traces of blood. In fact, she didn't even do a phenolphthalein test, a presumptive test, to detect for the presence of blood. Why? Because she never saw a red stain. So it makes no sense.
Lisa Hargraves is joining us from Facebook.
Welcome.
And she snuck in one last question. Now, this is the last question, guys, because we're going to go. She says, wasn't there an over-the-top amount of DNA on that key, like hundreds of times more than it should be for normal handling?
It was tenfold more. Tenfold more. So when Colborn extracted the DNA, it was Buting. Buting had asked her, how much DNA did you isolate? And it was number of nanograms per microliter. Then Kathleen Zorner in MAM2 got an exemplar key and asked Stephen to hold that key for, I think, about 8 or so minutes, handle the key. They then did a DNA extraction, and the amount of DNA that they isolated from the key was tenfold less, right? And the whole premise was that Stephen is a good shedder. So, of course, he sheds a lot of DNA. That got debunked pretty quick. So it wasn't hundreds of fold more. It was a tenfold more on that key. Correct. And we'll talk about that because the amount of bullshit, the narrative between Tom Fallon and Rebuttal would drive you nuts. Because they had to try and explain the absence of Teresa Orbach's DNA on that key. It was ridiculous. Okay. So guys, thank you so much for joining us. We did over 3 hours. And so tomorrow, what we'll do is we'll finish it. I don't want to rush it because we're going into a different territory. And again, guys, thank you so much. If you've enjoyed our podcast, please subscribe, put your DNA on the thumbs up button and share our podcast, guys. Guys, would you like to go through the panel? A quick goodbye?
I guess we could just briefly, Doc. I think we pretty much said what needed to be said. But
Awesome. All right, guys. Again, thank you so much. And we'll all catch you tomorrow. Thank you, guys.
And with that, I'm going to say this has been a Foul Play production.